Hi, I'm Marcus Richardson, driver of the #1 Richmond Raceway Toyota Camry, and you're watching iRacing Live.
Live from the virtual Michigan International Speedway is where we bring you round number 8 of the 2018 NASCAR PEAK Antifreeze iRacing Series. Cars are on track for the winding moments of the practice session as we get set to bring you flag-to-flag coverage right here on RaceSpot TV and iRacing Live. But before we get set to drop the green flag and to go to racing this evening, let's recap how we got here. Take a look back to Charlotte from 3 weeks ago. This is this week's iRacing race recap from race number 7. We're happy that you're spending a Tuesday evening with us on RaceSpot TV at iRacing Live. Christian Challenger going to put the right foot down. We're off from Charlotte, round 7 of the 2018 NASCAR PEAK Antifreeze iRacing Series is green. And the 78 car leads easy to turns 1 and 2. Looks like the top 5 with a single file things out. No contest in those first 5 positions. You'll find the 5 of Michael Conti making a move top to bottom as he tries to fight with that 15-0 back for that 5th position.
I definitely don't blame anyone for maybe coming down a little bit early, as I believe Christian Challenger's on pit road, Logan Clampett's on pit road, Zach Novak. So a lot of people deciding 50 laps is where you want to go. Chris Shearburn, your own team is going to go by rail. Follow the 1 car issues for Marcus Richardson. He's actually, I think, just about in the inside wall on pit road. He's going to reverse. Hopefully he doesn't collect anyone, but problems getting down to pit road as it just became a very busy place quarter distance into this one.
The 9 of Phil Diaz, and Michael Conti slides up in front of the 09 of David Rattler, and Rattler has to let out the gas, and right behind him he's got a whole host chomping down on him. Kerwin, Corey Vincent, Brad Davies, and a few others back there. Oh, it gets close off corner number 4. Rattler gets into the 14. The 14 has to try to save it again. He's going to go down into the grass, and I think he's going to save it again.
Fantastic job for Kerwin, second miraculous save. And the 83 was able to successfully use the outside to make the move. But look at the 12 of Shelton. Big run this time on turn number 4. Wants to go low. The 83 protects. Shelton's going to go up top. Can he get a nose there to turns 1 and 2? Yes, he can. And he will go side by side for the race lead. Here he comes. Nicholas Shelton going to put it to Bobby Zelensky down the back straightaway. 22 laps, should say, left to go in this race. But it's the 12 of Shelton up top who wants to take it away, and at a turn 4 he'll get a good run, and Nicholas Shelton to the race lead. What a move. Slow cars have cleared out of the way. We're going to have 2 laps left to go from the Charlotte Motor Speedway in the NASCAR PEAK Antifreeze iRacing Series. Jarl Tien looking for win number 1 brings us to the green flag.
2 drivers going for the first win in this series. I think if we go green to lap number 200, that 12 car has a really good shot. He was really fast late in this race as they work the corners number 1 and 2, 3 wide deep in the pack, but we need to maintain focus for this lead. The 12 has a bit of a run as they work down the back straightaway in towards 3 and 4. The gap comes down, but who is going to get it? 2 drivers compete for the first win. 12 machine coming off the corner, continues to close. White flag at the starter stand, and Shelton looks low.
Elton going to go to the inside of the racetrack. Jarl Tien does not go down the block. Side by side for the race win at Charlotte on the white flag lap. Both these drivers looking for their first career wins in a NASCAR Peak Antifreeze iRacing series. But Tien likes to run off of the quarter. He's got 3 car lengths, 3/4 of a car length, should say, to 3 and 4. Here comes Shelton, side by side. It's going to be a drag race to the start-finish line. And on the inside of the racetrack, Nicholas Shelton, yes sir, 7/1000ths of a second, steals it on the white flag lap from Charlotte.
Oh, that was late.
Hey guys! This week, the 6 on my team are Truex, Logano, Larson, Blaney, Chase, and Suarez. For the rest of you, better luck next week.
She's missing out, dude.
Yeah.
The all-new NASCAR Fantasy Live. Visit NASCAR.com/fantasy and build your team today.
The road to $10,000 rolls through the Motor City and into the Irish hills of Brooklyn, Michigan, where we say good evening, sim racing fans, and welcome to round number 8 of the 2018 NASCAR Peak Antifreeze iRacing series on RaceSpot TV and iRacing Live. Happy to be with you on this Tuesday night. As always, myself, Evan Pasoko, along with Tim Terry, Randy Cheneth upstairs, our director downstairs, Hugo Louise, pushing the buttons and bringing us to you this evening. Tim, we had just an extra week off between that last race out at Charlotte, so we had to wait a little bit longer to get here tonight, but it is round 8. The second half of the regular season starts right here, right now, and we do so on a brand new build on the iRacing service.
Excited to be back and excited to see what these drivers can do on this brand new build, what changes were made to the car and how it will affect the racing here this evening. We've seen some really great racing here at Michigan before, Evan, and I'm excited to see what can happen here. Ray Alfalo on top of the point standings. Ryan Luza, though, he's back, and he's going to start up front.
Did a good position to get this one kicked off. We saw Nicholas Shelton take home the win at Charlotte the last time out, Randy. This middle portion of the season, I think excluding when we get to the playoffs, may be one of my favorite parts all calendar year. Michigan tonight, Sonoma in a couple of weeks, Chicagoland after that. It's just a really fun stretch. And, you know, we raced earlier this year at a place like this in Auto Club Speedway. Lusa return here tonight, looking fast at the qualifying times. He won that race, first of the 2 wins he's already gotten on the season, but his name is up on that list of those top out X amount of drivers in the championship standings. You take a look at some of the previous race winners here at Michigan International Speedway. His is not a name, though, that is on that list, but this racetrack has been on this calendar all the way since way back in 2010, so it is a place that a lot of these veterans are very familiar with.
Definitely is. Michigan's sort of a favorite track among a lot of the sim racers on the iRacing service. Just generally puts on good racing for the, you know, the big 2-mile oval. Stock cars run well here. The Indy cars, when they come here, run well as well. So a lot of people very familiar with this place. We saw Auto Club, which is very similar. A couple of, well, early on in the season, put on a pretty good show. I think we're going to see Michigan very similar, put on a fantastic race tonight.
You mentioned the return of Ryan Luza, Tim. He dropped a little bit in the points, but still right up there with the likes of Logan DeClampa. They were tied for 6th and 7th. Hurst, Conti, Ottinger, those are all names that we expect to see up front, and they have been performing. As we really get into the point of the season now where you can't use some early season jitters or working things out as an excuse. It will be definitely an adjustment period within this race itself, maybe to get adjusted to what these cars have changed up, but these drivers have certainly been practicing from when that new build came into effect fact, a week ago today up until tonight there, so they should be very much prepared, and you can't really have any more mulligan races. If you're not in the top 10 in the points, if you haven't been performing, you either figure it out now or you accept the fact that you're going to have to pack it in until next year. You are running out of opportunities as you take a look at the upcoming calendar.
You've got one drop race. If you're Ryan Luza, you've missed 2 races, so you can't fall or rest on your laurels going forward here as we wrap up this practice session. One note tonight, Evan, we saw Michael Conti's name last year winning this race. He really needs a shot in the arm, tied for 8th in the point standings. This could be a turning point for him tonight.
We will see as they have plenty of time to figure it out. 125 laps, 250 miles on the board tonight. The base car and the car is going to be loaded onto the front straightaway, so let's take a look top to bottom. This is the RaceSpot TV starting grid for round number 8. And the aforementioned Ryan Michael Luza will start tonight on pole position. The number 6 machine will bring us to the green flag this evening. Keegan Leahy will join him on the outside of the front row in second. You look back at row number 2, third starting spot belongs to the 50 to Zach Novak. Matt Busa will start tonight in 4th, with Chris Shearburn 5th and Ray Alfala 6th, making up row number 3. Back in row 4, you'll find the 5 of Michael Conti starting in the number 7 position. Taylor Hurst will start in 8th, and the 2 names that make up row 5, that'll be a P9 on the grid for Corey Vincent, and rounding out your top 10 is Christian Challoner.
Colton Davis going to roll off from position number 11. One of the Chaos crew members in Jimmy Mullis on the outside in a position number 12. David Rattler, Casey Kerwin your next row. Bobby Zielinski and Nick Ottinger in the 05. 16th. Michael Guest in 17th. Had a couple of great runs here this season. Nick Shelton, our most recent winner, in 18th. Marcus Richardson and Brian Schoenberg, 2 more Chaos crew members, your next row.
Bill begins to roll smack dab in the middle of all of it. Is going to be your 21st place starter, Logan Clampett. He and Jarl Tien going to make up row number 11. Philip Diaz, Brad Davies alongside each other, 23rd and 24th at grid in this one. Brendan Pitbrass will start from 25th, and Casey Tucker will start from 26th. Blake Reynolds, Chris Overland are going to be row mates back in 27th and 28th position as we get back to row number 15. Alex Bergeron starts 29th, and Andrew Fayash is 30th.
Your final 5 are Joe Letteriello, Nolan Scott, Jake Sturgis, Ryan Lowe, and starting scratch on the field, the 8 of Adam Gilliland.
We showed you the list of previous race winners here from Michigan International Speedway. Towler, Sheehan, you got Karlavage, Alfala, Laughlin, of course, Humpy, Alfala, and Conti. So with the exception of Ray Alfala, nobody has been able to find a victory lane here more than once. It is a racetrack that I like to call wide open. It's a fast track. It is a wide track in this 2-mile D-shaped oval with it 18 degrees of banking in the corner. Still 12 degrees really on that front stretch, which is a long and very gradual left-hand bank down to turn number 1, leaves a lot in the driver's hands, and it should be a fun one tonight, seeing how these drivers can work around, find the preferred group. The difference between lap 1 and lap 125 should be an interesting one. But as the base car gets sharp to take that sharp left-hand turn down to the safety of the pit lane, as always, we're happy that you're spending a Tuesday evening with us on RaceSpot TV and iRacing Live. Pace car going to give way to the number 6 of Ryan Luza, back for round number 8, and he wants to get back to victory lane. American Ethanol green flag in the air. We're racing once more in the NASCAR PEAK Antifreeze iRacing series, and as we get up to speeds approaching over 200 miles an hour in this one, it is all the 6 of Luza, first time in turn 1.
But how about Ray Alfala on that start, making things happen on the outside line, got to the outside of Busa. Busa tried to slam the door by the looks of it, but he went 3 wide, picked up a couple of spots, and now to the outside he goes on Zach Novak as he'll drag race down the back straightaway into corner number 3. Ray Alfala, the only 2-time winner here at Michigan, looking to make it 3 here this evening.
And he's also looking, as you see, the number 15 division of Zach Novak slide up and get in front of him. Alfala also looking for win number 2 on this season to come over in at a very different racetrack, Richmond, earlier on this year. Outside, not typically the place you would want to be, Randy, but here at Michigan, again, that speed you can wind up top has its advantages. Alfala was not able to get around Novak, but still goes +2 at the start. Your 1, 2, and 3 drivers, Luza, Leahy, and Novak, no changes from the order in which they took to the grid. But then, of course, from there on back, you've got a lot of scuffling going on. The 74 of Taylor Hurst pinched down low. It's the 5 of Michael Conti trying to stay up top, but it's like that 74 Chevrolet, the upper hand, and able to successfully hang on to P7.
The upper groove, not really where you want to be just yet, but we've seen thus far over the course of this season, bottom lanes kind of start to go away, and I think if we get long green flag runs here in Michigan, this track's going to get really, really racy. As you said, it's very wide, very fast, and you can run an upper lane. We got a car up there right now. That's the 78 of Christian Challoner, wheel to wheel with Jimmy Mullis. As Mullis the one making the move. He picked up the spot through 1 and 2. Down the back straightaway, though, Challoner is going to have the momentum up, and they head back in towards 3 and 4. You're going to see advantage to go back towards Mullis as they work into the middle of 3. But you see everyone, you want to stay up off that white line. Everyone running that sort of second groove is about as low as you want to get here at Michigan. They head down the front straightaway, and Mullis now takes that nice spot away.
And you'll see the speed here on board with Christian Challoner up at over 213 miles an hour, I think is where it topped off at as he went down it into the corner. He'll kind of tuck himself back in line. He'll accept defeat in the battle between he and Mullis. So Mullis in at 27 stays up in front of him. Good run off for the quarter this time. The back straightaway very long here at MIS. That front stretch as well. Plenty of opportunities to really work the draft in. That's why the speeds are so high. And you can see now out of the front windshield at Challoner's Toyota, some side-by-side action going on. That was the 74 of Taylor Hurst who dropped down low. And the inside's going to be wide open if you want to get to the inside of Sherburne there, because again, Tim, those drivers not really going all the way down to the inside of the racetrack. The low line here is about a lane up off of the bottom, right at that first seamer, so nobody wants to get way down into the quarter. And that's why if you want to go side by side, an opportunity is always there. The 74 of Hurst, though, not going to be able to get up to the 36 instead. Michael Conti's got different ideas. That's the 5 Chevrolet topside. Looks like he'll just swipe that spot away.
Conti and Hurst, two of those drivers that are tied for 8th place in the point standings right now, going side by side for that spot. Keep an eye on Zach Novak as well near the front of the field. He's looking on the inside of Keegan Leahy as they came across the stripe for position number 2, and they'll dive it down into corner number 1. Novak's been trying to set this pass up for the last couple laps. Looks like he might have it here. Keegan Leahy falls back to position at number 3, but couple laps, he was consistent trying to make that pass, and Zach Novak makes that inside line work. Now we'll see if he can catch that number 6 car up in front.
That's the objective, trying to get up to the number 6 Michitalusa, who has been relatively uncontested thus far in this race. Again, he had that very good jump right out of the gates, and it's been at about that a half a second difference. You look at the intervals down there now, just creeping into the 3600s as the 15 Michita Zach Novak should say, with all the momentum passing to Leahy now tries to close in the gap, and maybe he'll be able to do something with the 6 machine, but so far so smooth for the 6 out in front. Lusa uncontested, continues to lead this race, and there's a good bit of separation amongst those drivers inside of the top 5. You can see as we head down the back straightaway, some exchanges of 2 wide throughout the pack. First battle of the 2x2. You'll see coming to focus about the 9th cars in line or so. At 27 to Jimmy Mullis just now tucking up in line, so everybody inside of the top 10 cooperating.
Been a good opening run for that 27 of Jimmy Mullis. Started this thing in 12th, and he's already worked himself up into the 8th spot. So pretty much making a pass every other lap is that Lockdown Racing and Chaos Crew driver. So he's going to be very happy with his car, at least at the moment. Be interesting to see how that forms up as the run goes on. A couple other fights in the field. To see one car way up the top of the racetrack. That's the 11 of Colton Davis, fighting with that 46 of Logan Clampett as they work off of corner number 2 and down this long back straightaway. And Davis actually wanted to work the momentum, but Brian Schoenberg kind of threw the block. Didn't get a great run coming off corner number 2 and really hurt that 11 car's momentum. So Logan's going to have the positional advantage on that number 11 car through 3 and 4, and that 46 machine needs to count as lucky stars. He nearly lost himself a position, and now he's going to make a move on that 55 of Brian Schoenberg, who just saved him from dropping that position.
And we're on board with that 11 at Colton Davis. Look for the 20 Honda machine coming up the inside as well. That's Brandon Pipcrash. You can see him right there, that blue car entering the frame. He was able to kind of sneak up behind the 11 to get by him. So it was the 46 to 55, so tight on each other. That time off of the corner. How about some 3 wide down the back straightaway? Here comes Pipgrass, trying to get one, if not both of those positions. Schoenberg's going to be able to stay in front of all of that and ends up winning what was a fight for 17th position. And then Clampett with that run up top. Yes, he will also stay in front of the 20 Honda machine. But Brandon Pipcrash showing he's not shy at all to mix it up early in this one, as he's already up 6 spots from where he started. We'll now see Clampett go back to the inside, try again. So Schoenberg and Clampett, something tells me they're going to be very well acquainted by the time we get through the first run in this race.
Fantastic racing between these two, and Brandon Pipcrass, we saw him trying to set up the pass out of corner number 2 a couple laps ago. Just a matter of momentum, trying to get by. Looks like he might have a little bit of a faster car right now and just boxed in and can't get around Clampett or Schoenberg for that position as those guys continue to go side by side at a corner number 4 as they'll complete lap number 10 this time by. The battle for the lead, I think, is going to intensify here within the next 5 laps or so. Zach Novak, Keegan Leahy, Ray Alfala, they are all reeling in your leader, but this battle right here is intense in the middle of the pack, and there's that little gap from first, second, and back to third as you ride along with Keegan Leahy. I think we're going to have a battle on our hands sooner rather than later. A little bump up the racetrack for the 15 opens the door for Keegan Leahy.
I thought maybe once Novak was able to make the move on Leahy as they got awfully close and there might have been contact with the 24 and the 15 that time. I do think Leahy got into the back of Zach Novak there and it loosened the 15 up into the corner and do a very good job of getting some of the speed back, but it's difficult to counteract that lack of momentum, and all of a sudden Leahy is now back into second, Randy. When Novak initially made that move, he immediately pulled a couple of car lengths. I thought that he was just going to stroll on up to the race lead, but more so be able to just get away from Leahy. But once that 24 got past, kind of turned it up a notch, stayed on the back of the 15, and maybe with a little bit of assist to the front end of that Chevrolet SS, is now back in second.
Yeah, it's a great move there from Keegan. There's a little bit of a shot to the back of the 15, but I think he wasn't expecting Zach to check up the way he did. I don't think it was more of a classic bump and run. I think it was just kind of consequential contact, but you're absolutely right. I mean, these guys haven't, well, up until right now, have not been able to really reel in that number 6 of Ryan Michaeluza. That said, that 24 just took a tenth of some change out of him, and it's down under 0.2 of a second in the gap right now. So maybe that 6 car missing a couple races, maybe just trying to get back into a rhythm, struggling with the tires right now as they head down that long back straightaway. Keegan's been the dominant driver in this season, with Ryan sort of being AFK for the last couple races, and now Luza just trying to get back into that dominant streak, but you know that Keegan is not going to want to let him do that. Even though there's team racing, there's some camaraderie there, there's going to be some competition between the two of them as well.
No doubt, and I think the key is to kind of find that good balance, to be able to still go out, fight hard with one another, while at the same time keeping in mind that if both cars involved in that fight end up out of this race, then really nobody wins. Taking a look back a little bit further in the pack, it's always easy to spot that number 83 machine. You were watching Zelensky fight with the 10 of Corey Vincent, and just in front of them, that 5 of Michael Conti wrapping up a battle in which the 12 of Nicholas Shelton passed him. That one was for 9th position, and the battle with that 10 of Corey Vincent, the Peak Blue Chevrolet, tuck it back in line in 12th. He will lose a spot to Bobby Zelensky. So Zelensky takes 12th away. He will fall to 13th. So despite the fact that the guys up front have a couple of car lengths in between them and are able to separate just a little bit these drivers mid-pack, again, that draft here at MIS keeps everybody packed on top of each other. Anytime you get a little bit of a loss of momentum off of the corner, it's very easy for somebody within a couple of car lengths to try to make a move.
And it provides us with some really exciting racing as you ride along, trying to get up to the 83 of Bobby Zelensky, running down the back straightaway right now. This pack in the middle of the field, pretty intense right now. Your top few drivers have a little bit of insurance in between them, and they're just riding right now as we'll come by to complete lap number 15. This time by, there's Shearburn on the inside of Busa trying to make a move at a corner number 4. Shearburn has had a good season so far, as had Busa, and we're getting to that midway point of this season, so these drivers really trying to pour it on during the summer stretch.
In the summer stretch, as I noted, Sonoma really solidifies that. That's going to be next time out, 2 weeks' time, June the 26th. Here on RaceSpot TV and iRacing Live. That one going to be around 9 on the year. But of course, there's only 13 races left, or 13 races total, should say, in the regular season. So after tonight, only 5 more races. It'll give you an opportunity to qualify into the 2018 playoffs. So you can see on the left-hand side of your screen there some of the bigger movers, but you can see 1, 2, and 3 have held strong. No change for position so far amongst Luza, Leahy, Novak. Obviously, the 15 was able to make a move, got up to second for a little bit, but they have since swapped back. Other than that, everybody with musical chairs mid-pack. Nick Shelton's a name, though, that you want to see there, plus 9 spots. Keep a half eye on that 12 car. He's looking pretty good. He's got a big gap from him back to Conti. He's kind of in no man's land at the moment. If he can catch up to Matt Busa, you can see him just at the bottom of the screen there. He's kind of leading this pack of cars. If he can get up to the tail end of the pack of cars in front of them, he'll have a couple of opportunities to make some more moves.
Yeah, if he can get up there and start getting a little bit of that slipstream, it's going to be very good for him. He was just a 1/10 of a second quicker than Busa, so he is reeling those cars in out in front of him, and I think he's going to be working this momentum best as he can as that number 12 car of Nicholas Shelton. It's been a fantastic season for him. Got his first win in this championship, of course, at Charlotte. He's had a lot of momentum, and he was close a couple times before that win at Charlotte, so he's going to want to try to work off this momentum. Having a good solid run right now, up 9 spots, and I really think that's one of the big talking points for Slip Angle. We've seen all of them sort of struggle to get up near the front with the exception of Ray. I think their qualifying efforts have really been the big downfall for those guys. They're always making up 9 spots, 10 spots. I mean, think about Bobby Zielinski starting 15th, a couple spots just ahead of Nick Shelton, and he's slowly working his way forward as well. I think if these guys can get their qualifying figured out and maybe starting up inside the top 10, maybe even top 5 more consistently, I think we might see the likes of Zielinski, Shelton, the rest of the Slip Angle group as an entity really start putting in some better finishes.
On the tough break, especially when you start back in the package, you have to deal with the traffic that you're seeing Zielinski deal with now. He's trying to hold off David Rattler, but the 09 machine awfully aggressive and a little bit sideways that time off of the quarter as the 10 of Vincent kind of pinched him in there with Zielinski. The 09 got spit out of line, but he keeps the right foot in her, and they will continue to fight for 12th spot. But also, you just get so far behind the 8 ball. Yeah, Zielinski's got a couple of spots. You could use Nick Shelton as an example, Tim, as well. Started 18th. He's already passed 9 cars up to P9. That's great, but you're so far off of the 8 ball that he's over 5 seconds off of the race lead. At that point, doesn't matter how many cars you're getting by, going to be nearly impossible to make up 5 seconds on the guys out front and in clean air. So as we watch this group of cars go side by side, 2 rows deep, and the 10 of Corey Vincent's got a front row seat of it all down the back straightaway. All of this funding is for 10th position on back. This is what you get yourself stuck in when you qualify in the middle of the pack.
But there are a lot of laps left to go in this one. Over 100 laps to go, 105 to be exact, as they'll complete lap 20 right here. I talked to a couple of teams earlier. I asked them, what's your window for coming down pit road? And one team told me 45 laps, and I said, that kind of makes sense. Pit around lap 45, pit around lap 90 again, and then have a 35 lap run to the finish. If it does go green, obviously, we saw some pit strategy last week before Rasher Cautions decided to come out at Charlotte. So we'll see how this all transpires as you ride on board. Looking at that number 5 of Michael Conti, the 83 of Bobby Zielinski on the inside as they dance for a spot down into corner number 3 and trying to get back up there and trying to make a top 10 run into this as they chase down Christian Chalner. We're just right in front of them coming off of corner number 4.
Still side by side, you see all of this, and on board with Corey Vincent, very tight quarters. You can see just how little space the 10 machine has got in really any given direction right there. The 5 of Conti, again, just wants to get away from all of this. And if you're Christian Challenger on the horizon in that 78 machine right now running in P10, you do not want that pack of cars to get to you. But again, it is nearly impossible to just get away from each other. The draft down the back straightaway. That 10 of Corey Vincent, who's in the back of this group right there, over 204 miles an hour that time into turn 3. If you can pass somebody, that's great, but the reason you were able to get right up on their bumper because you had that draft coming off of the back end. You clear them, they're going to do the same thing to you, and we go 3-1 again. David Rattler this time all the way down to the flat of the racetrack as these guys continue to show no quit. Randy, certainly what is about halfway through a green flag run. Still no cautions thus far from Michigan.
It's been very fantastic clean racing here as they work through 1 and 2 side by side. Is that number 09 of Dave Rattler not going to have very good pace off? The 83 of Bobby Zielinski is going to be able to work that momentum up top and get pretty much just a nose ahead of that 09 car before he's going to have to lift in towards 3 and 4. You're absolutely right. Talking about that 78 of Christian Challenger, it's going to be like looking at a black hole in that rearview mirror because once he gets to that sort of event horizon of those guys, if they close up, they can start making moves on him. There's no way he's going to be able to stretch out a gap here. We've not seen anyone in this impact really been able to make a move and get away for some time now. Some of the people that maybe didn't qualify as well as they should have, or maybe didn't have the greatest qualifying car but have a good race car, they've been able to sort of make up big moves already. Now you're just sort of stuck where you're at. So if you're that 78 of Christian Challenger, any little mistake that brings those guys up into you, that's the last thing you want, because you go from being essentially by yourself on the racetrack, able to run your line and be relatively calm, essentially being 3 wide down the straightaways as we've seen from this little battle pack the last 10 to 15 laps.
And more intense now in lap 24, I think, than it was at any point in those opening 10 laps. Of course, again, the interval's at the top of your screen, so you still see that Luz is leading. Just want to update you, though, Leahy's still about 3/4 tenths of a second off of him, but then it is a big gap. They have really stretched things out. Zach Novak, third on track, is over 1.5 seconds off of the battle that he was a part of, seemingly not all that long ago. Then you have to look about another 1.5, 2 seconds back to Taylor Hurst in fourth. So the guys up front definitely stringing things out that in no way fits the definition of what we're watching right now. And you can see that group of the two sets of 2x2 with those company cars off of the inside of the racetrack, the 09 Rattler, and then a little bit further back, that was a 46 machine, even of Logan Clampett. But you can see as the whole field spreads them wide in 3 and 4 now off of the quarter, battles like this going on all over the racetrack. You're not going to find anywhere on track in between, I'll take a look through, anywhere from 5th to 34th position. You're not going to find a single car that is more than 1 second away from the next closest car. Now, the leaders have that separation, but everybody else constantly dealing with traffic, and that's what makes this racetrack so fun from a spectator's perspective.
The only driver that really doesn't have a dancing partner right now, Evan, is Zach Novak, sitting in position number 3. Ryan Luz, Keegan Leahy, about 4 or 5 car lengths in between them, and it seems like Keegan will get a couple of good laps real late to Ryan Luz, and then Luz will turn the wick up and pull away by 3 or 4 car lengths. So those two playing a little cat and mouse, I think, up in front. And then it's about a second and a half or so back to Zach Novak, and then everybody else, as you mentioned, really fighting for 4th on back. They have a dancing partner, they have somebody to chase, or they have somebody to try to pull away from, except for that 15 car you just saw. And there's that battle for position number 4 beginning to heat up. And middle of the pack, there's Chris Overland working the outside line, Andrew Fayash the third on the inside, and Jarl T, and he came so close a few weeks ago to winning his first race in this series at Charlotte, and now he's trying to reel in the guys like Overland and the 77 to Fayash, and that's around 20th place right now. Jarl T in 22nd.
The ROTN's been able to close it out in the past at a NASCAR iRacing to Pro Series, and it was painfully close for the driver of that number 3 Chevrolet just those few weeks ago from the Charlotte Motor Speedway. That talking about drivers who, the lack of the qualifying ability, maybe qualifying putting you behind the 8 ball per se. And another name when you talk about that, it always comes to mind, Randy, is that 77 of Andrew Fayash, a P30 in qualifying tonight. Not that bad. We tend to see that driver in the higher 30s, but he's so good at being so smooth under race trim. He's already made up 10 spots. We just saw him complete the move at a 47 of Overland, and as Jarl Tien tries to stick it out in there, I think he'll be able to set his sights on that 14 machine, a Casey Kerwin. But again, yes, you passed 10 cars, but you're over 11 seconds off of the race lead. So another situation where great race cars can definitely be hindered by your inability to get the job done in the qualifying section. And you talk about just how tight sometimes those intervals are in Q, even a 1/2 tenth of a second, you're talking about hundredths the difference between being in a top 10 position and being towards the back half of the field.
Qualifying so incredibly important for top-level sim racing. I don't care if it's a NASCAR series like this, even endurance racing. You're talking 6-hour, 12-hour, even 24-hour races. The fields and these sorts of things are competitive enough that qualifying can really have a huge effect on where you start, getting them around a bunch of traffic, get stuck. Maybe you can't get clear people instead of being able to get away from someone you keep pace with, getting locked in a battle the way Andrew Fayash has been. It really does hamper you. But that said, if you're someone who knows that you don't really have the whole out-and-out pace, you're only going to be running top 20 or so, you might have a little bit more fun starting somewhere around 30th and racing your way up through that first stint. So for someone like Andrew Fayash, who we haven't seen him sort of have that race-winning pace or consistently being able to get up towards top 10s, you know what, it might be a heck of a lot more fun driving through the field in the first 30 to 40 laps of the stint. You know what, I can't argue with that at all.
It keeps you busy, that's for sure. I just love as you went on board that time down the back straightaway with Casey Kerwin pushing that 77 of Fayash, as Fayash again completed the pass for 19th position at 200 miles an hour. And those guys are just tucked up on one another's bumper and driving like it is no big deal. Side by side at about 20th and 21st. Also should note a little bit of side by side inside of the top 10 for a moment. Corey Vincent tried to get around Nick Shelton for 9th. That did not happen, although this time off of the corner, Vincent with a very good run. There's the number 10 on the inside, side by side off to quarter 3. And Corey Vincent looks like he'll snag back P9. It's where he started in this one, and that hard charge from Nicholas Shelton to claim the 10 as a victim. The 10 looking very good here. If we are to think, Tim, that number on fuel anywhere from 40 to 45 laps, that puts you right in the ballpark of being able to get to lap 125 on 2 stops, assuming that this race were to stay under green flag conditions, and that is always how you have to kick the race off, is assuming and with your strategy based on that. If that's the number we're going with, we're no more than 10 laps away from the start of service, so you're definitely seeing drivers maybe reach the limit on those tires, trying to pace them for 40 or so laps, and if you can get 1 or 2 more positions here at the very end of a long run, I think that's a big pickup headed into a pit stop cycle.
And you talk about this race going green. It does have a green flag feel to it right now, Evan, but when you come down pit road, you talked about those massive speeds we're seeing here on the racetrack at over 200 miles an hour. You got to whoa it down to about a quarter of that coming onto pit road, and sometimes it's a little easier said than done. We'll see how these drivers do handle it. As you mentioned, we're getting a little bit closer to that window where we'll see these drivers come down pit road for the first time, and these battles continue around this racetrack. You mentioned that 10 of Corey Vincent. When he made that move on Nick Shelton, you saw the accordion kind of squeeze together. The 09 and David Rattler was able to pick up a spot, and now Rattler goes on the offense and looks to the inside of the 10 of Corey Vincent. There's a driver that's had a couple of really good runs this season, Evan. The 09 and David Rattler comes into this event 15th place in the point standings, just a few races away from the playoffs cutoff. And if David Rattler wants to get there, he's going to have to get up on the wheel, and it looks like he's doing it tonight, currently in P10.
When you're that close to being on the inside and it's almost within reach, you can definitely see, those top 10 to get into a position to qualify for the playoffs this year, to be able to fight for a championship again. At this point in the season, you can simply no longer afford a bad race or a mistake at a drop week that really doesn't help you at this point. It's time to lock in and get a couple of good finishes, and that's why I think the positioning of Sonoma, again, where we'll be next time for round 9, is very peculiar, because if that's a racetrack you like, then it kind of sets up very nicely for you. If that is a racetrack, and maybe just road courses in general, something that you do not like, then it can be tough, and it just adds a little bit more in front of you as far as obstacles that you're going to have to try to overcome. We are closing in now just past quarter distance in this race. This portion of tonight's broadcast is brought to you by Peak Antifreeze and Coolant, proud title sponsor of the NASCAR Peak Antifreeze iRacing series. Now we sit and wait. Majority of the battles have simmered down. You see some side-by-side on track right now as that 77 of Fayash continues to try to get one spot at a time. He'll get 17th from Colton Davis and then go to the inside and look for 16th on Brandon Pipgrass. These 1, 2, maybe 3 spots at the end of the run, Randy, could be huge for the 77. But again, everybody now starting to think of when they come down pit road and a waiting game to see who pulls the trigger first.
Definitely seems to be the situation. The 77 car has been absolutely flying on these old tires. These 2/10ths in pretty much the vast majority of the field. The only guys who are quicker are the guys way out in front. So for Andrew Fayash, he's going to be loving this late stage of the run. You know what? I'd almost like, I think, for that 77 car to go a little bit opposite. Even though he's good on old tires, maybe come down a little bit early and do the undercut and try to keep this momentum working its way forward. The pace that he shows on the old tires, I think he won't have too much of a disadvantage if he comes down a couple of laps early. And having the undercut, I think he'll pick up a couple spots. So I think that'd be a good potential way to go for that 77 car of Andrew Fayash. But I want to talk about a busy run over these 37 laps. He's up 14 spots from where he started, and he's still got a lot of cars close to him out in front of him, and he seems like he has no intention of letting up whatsoever. So the 77 of Andrew Fayash, if he can run like this every week, I'll say I don't want to see him qualify better. It's a lot of fun watching him run through these fields.
And passing some of the big names like the Contis and the Overlands, Jake Sturgis, Marcus Richardson, just to name a few. Jarl Tien, again, who just 3 weeks ago in a position to possibly take home the win for the Charlotte Motor Speedway. Names that Fayash has been able to dispose of relatively easily again here at the end of this long run. It's not like Fayash sat back a whole lot at the start of the run. He's been passing cars the whole time, but if you have that little bit more juice in you than everybody else has at this very end of a run, again, there's a big difference coming into pit road, maybe 15th position, as to coming into pit road 19th or so. Now, again, you could have it easily a 3 or 4 position swing, Tim, based on when you come down to pit road. Do you short pit? Do you wait and stretch it out a little bit longer? That's the age-old question. Obviously, fastest ways to come down and get those fresh tires ASAP. There's always the possibility, maybe if you're pitting from a little bit deeper in the pack on the lead lap, getting stuck a lap down is what maybe spooks some drivers away from doing that short pit. But Ryan Michael Luza, race leader, now 2 seconds in front of Keegan Leahy. It's the biggest we've seen between first and second all night. We'll take lap number 40 this time by and pretty much open up that pit window.
Zach Novak has fallen off the pace compared to some of the other drivers around him on this long run. Chris Shearburn has made the move to third, and here comes Taylor Hirsch to the inside of the 15. He'll take position number 4 by the looks of it as they fight down into corner number 1. And not too far behind, about 3/4 of a second, is Jimmy Mullis. And then there's a little ways back to Ray Alfala, who sits in position number 7. So we talk about comers and goers, drivers that like the long run compared to the short run. Obviously, Ryan Luza looks comfortable up in front. Zach Novak is one of those drivers that wants to come down onto pit road and get a couple of adjustments. And Ray Alfala, I'm surprised he's not a little closer towards the front of the field. He's got his hands completely full right now. He's got the 09 of David Rattler on his back bumper. There's Busa on the outside of the 10 of Corey Vincent. And Ray Alfala is kind of the meat in the sandwich right now.
Yeah, Ray just lost those 2 spots. Busa and Vincent were able to get around him, so Ray Alfala was hanging in there. And again, you don't want the wheels to fall off when you're this close to coming down pit road. But as you and out of David Rattler gets up the inside a little bit sideways, and those cars were awfully close to get into each other. The 2 of Alfala saw that and got up and kind of saved both of them as Rattler went a little bit too spirited down to the inside. But just like that, Ray Alfala loses 3 spots. He'll fall to P10 instead of coming into the pits from P7. That could be huge later on in this race when you maybe talk about a late race charge at the front. Having 3 extra cars in between you and an opportunity to battle for the race lead is no help.
And we already got our first pitter here, Ryan Michael Luza from the race lead. You'll be the first driver to come down pit road. I think we got a couple cars spinning on the pit entry. Who is that who might be around? I believe that's what I saw. I saw smoke as they got on. Maybe just lockups, but very, very tight. We got a number of drivers on pit road. Bobby Zielinski, Michael Connie, Jarl Tien, Michael Guest, Casey Tucker, Schoenberg, Overland Reynolds. A lot of guys coming down pit road here very, very early. Interesting, Keegan Leahy stays out. He's going to come down pit road right here, right now. Chris Shearburn, I think he's going to look to stay out. Indeed he is. Taylor Hirsch comes down pit road. Now the question is, where do those other drivers, especially the slip angle drivers, they've really been faltering on the old tires. We've seen Alfala, Shelton, and even Bobby Zielinski, who we've already seen come down pit road. But when do Alfala and, importantly, Shelton decide to pit?
When the smoke you saw was from Bobby Zielinski, he really locked that car up, and he actually took out the commitment cone on the way into pit road. So it was a tough break for the 83 machine. He had to sit in his pit stall and serve a penalty. So he is just now exiting pit road. That is a big hit to Bobby Zielinski, and he made that mistake on the pit lane, and you can actually see the tire tracks of his off into the grass right over by pit road entry. More drivers in. Chris Shearburn has cycled through to the race lead. He'll also be headed down pit road this time. Jimmy Mullis in from second. Zach Novak, Matt Busa, David Rattler all down pit road. So Ray Alfala now temporarily assumes P1. He'll be accompanied by a bonus point for taking over the race lead for him. First time tonight at lap 44.
Yeah, he's the only driver in the top 6 on that last lap that decided to stay out on the racetrack. So Ray Alfala, as you mentioned, picks up that bonus point, and we'll see. I would assume he would come down on pit road this next lap by, but we'll see what happens. That's, I guess, why we're up here not on the pit boxes. But the Virtual Racing School number 2 will round to corners number 3 and 4 on that inside line. He pops up at corner number 4, and he'll stay on the racetrack this time by.
You can see just the sheer difference in speed. That red car on your left-hand side is your race leader, not the red car that was on the bottom of the racetrack. So that is the 78 machine on fresh tires, coming back through it effectively, unlapping himself. is Challoner, and then Kerwin, and then Michael Conti. So that's the difference between fresh tires and old tires. The fastest lap of the race for Ray Alfalo was lap 2. It was his first at-speed lap of the race, and on fresh tires he put down a 37.9. Last lap was a 41.1, so you're looking at a significant fall off of over 3 seconds from fresh to old tires, and that is why he is so slow and so far off of the pace, and he'll drop down to the inside of the racetrack. Ray Alfalo headed down pit road. A little bit of a lockup on the entry, but he'll be able to get it down to pit road speed in time, 55 miles an hour.
Yeah, it's kind of a bummer with the drop-off being so significant. I don't think we're going to see anyone really play anything crazy in terms of tire strategy. We've seen that a couple times this season. People go for sort of an alternate call, but I think with just the amount of time you lose on an old set of rubber, there's just no way it's going to be viable for anyone, as Ryan Michael Luza is going to cycle back out into the race lead, and he has a huge lead over that 74 car of Taylor Hurst. What happened to the 24 Keegan Leahy? Maybe an issue on pit road because he lost a ton of time, but Ryan Michael Luza, fantastic sequence on pit road, and he's going to have north of a 9-second lead when he eventually comes back out to inherit this the point when our timing updates.
And it was a very bad stop for Leahy. You mentioned that. He went into the pit box way too far to the left. You're seeing a slow car now on the inside of the racetrack. That's the 02 of Alex Bergeron, who obviously has some sort of an issue, and he is going to pull out of the way, very wide back straightaway apron. He's going to pull up against the wall, and I think that'll be a quick toe to the pit lane. It is. So Bergeron, some sort of problem may cause him to be the first retiree of the night, but Leahy had a mistake on a pit road, Tim. Slid into the box too deep to the left side. It took him a couple of times forwards and backwards to get it into the correct positioning, and that is what really hurt him, cost him 3 spots. But more importantly, not only did he fall from 2nd to 5th, but he goes from being 2 seconds off of the race lead to 12, and now having to deal with somebody like the 27 Jimmy Mullis, who wants to make it a fight right now, side by side for P5, as we've completed our first cycle of pit stops.
Not only is Ryan Luza good on the racetrack, he was good on pit road and added to that lead. You see Keegan Leahy on the outside with Zach Novak and Jimmy Mullis battling it out for what would be a top 5 position at this point. They come by across the stripe this time and complete lap number 47 on the racetrack. And as they continue to work around here side by side with Novak to the inside of Mullis, they'll try to get that thing straightened out, and Corey Vincent not too far in the windshield of those two that are battling for that spot as they run it down the back straightaway. And it looked like that last time by, Taylor Hurst might have been a touch quicker than Ryan Luza, but it's still about 8 seconds in between your top two. These guys are putting on a show, though.
Absolutely, and for Luza, something that he's going to have to deal with maybe in about 20 or so laps from now that he hasn't had to deal with yet, really, Randy, is lap traffic. In Michigan, we talked about it, the 2-mile D-shaped oval, but it is just such a wide track that assuming those cars are catching up to put a lap down or paying attention, it really shouldn't be that big of a deal. There's enough variance in that preferred line here that you should be able to safely navigate around them. But I mentioned that Alex Bergeron took that quick toe to the pit lane. The O2's getting back out on track 3 laps down, but everybody else, 34 cars, are still scored on the lead lap. Nobody else has been lapped under green flag conditions, with the exception, of course, when we played musical chairs with the running order with cars coming down pit road in a green flag condition. So shortly, Luz is going to start to catch up to the 34th and then 33rd placed cars, and it's just going to make his world a little bit more hectic, add that little bit of an extra element of challenge into the mix, where the 6 machine really hasn't had to deal with any of that tonight. Had a couple of cars get within a car length of his bumper, but other than that, it has been smooth sailing out the windshield since then.
I'm not so sure that we're going to see that number 6 machine have to deal with lap traffic anytime soon, because you look at that 34th running car of Bobby Zielinski, he's about 9 seconds ahead of that race leader of Ryan Michael Luza, and he's doing very similar lap times. If not, he's actually a little bit quicker than Luza is. So Bobby's out there flying right now doing 39.6s. So if anything, he's increasing that gap. Brian Schoenberg, he's in the low 40s, and he's a couple of seconds out in front of Bobby Zielinski. So we might see Luza hit lap traffic, but if it happens, it's not going to happen, I think, until the very end of this run, lap 80, even towards probably lap 100. I think the whole field is too close and too competitive right now.
You can see the O2 machine getting up and around your race leader. That's not for position. We're watching a fight that includes the number 10 machine, Corey Vincent, for position. this one, a little bit to the outer skirts of the top group. In fact, it is kind of a secondary group forming up. Hurst is kind of all by himself. Shearburn is trying to get away, and then you find this group. Novak leading it. The 10 of Corey Vincent actually just now losing P5 with Mullis having completed that pass. So Vincent's going to fall to P6, and then Keegan Leahy in 7th position. So kind of a double whammy of bad luck for the 24 there, Tim. You make your mistake on pit road, you lose a bunch of spots, and then you just so happen to lose just enough time to be at the lead of a group of 4 or 5 cars. They all jump on top of you, and Leahy looks like he's going to get one back here to the inside of Vincent. But again, this is not something he was dealing with when he was in P2, and he'll still end up getting one spot back, so he'll go back to P6, but overall still another spot into the negative because he blended it back out after pit stops in P5.
Obviously clean air and track position in that position number 2 throughout that first run, and makes that move on the 10 of Corey Vincent. Vincent falling backwards compared to those 3 drivers in front of him, and it looks like Jimmy Mullis and Keegan Leahy have a little bit of speed in their race cars. Ryan Luza continues to lead, and it's almost 7 seconds between himself and Taylor Hurst. So Hurst picking away, as is Chris Shearburn in the 36 car, running in position number 3. Do not count out that driver this evening. Shearburn in that 3rd place spot. Still a long ways to run here this evening. Just getting a little bit closer to that halfway point in this one. Quick pace to it, but Shearburn, a veteran, first time in this NASCAR Peak Antifreeze iRacing series, but knows his way around a virtual racetrack, and I think we're going to be calling him a winner in this series sooner rather than later.
It is interesting when we talk about the the length and the distance in this race at MIS, because Randy, of course, 125 laps doesn't sound like a ton. You are talking about a racetrack that takes about 40 seconds to get around when you're talking about the cars being at speed, but it is a race that, for as competitive as the racetrack is, for as tight it appears that the competition has been this evening, that people can get spread out. And you'll see those close battles. We've seen many a times drivers leaning on each other, especially in corner number 2 is one of those spots that maybe holds your breath for an extra second to make sure that you're able to survive that and get to the straight chute and go all the way down that long back straightaway. But it is a racetrack that can lend itself to excited racing, but it is also a racetrack that absolutely sets itself up for races like we've seen so far. Again, there's no way of knowing how a race is going to play out. Obviously, the tides could change at any given moment, but 55 laps now have been completed by this field, and race leader Ryan Luza just now starting lap 56 and caution-free and really incident-free so far. Every single car who started this race is still on track, and everybody's on the lead lap, with the exception of Alex Bergeron, who had that small incident that was not an accident. He was seen to, for some reason, lose power, wasn't able to get it back around the track, took a tow to pit road, got back out. So it has been very clean so far as well, which is a good thing to know.
It definitely has. I mean, you look up and down the field and you see a lot of clean race cars that don't have any issues with them at all. Not a scratch on them, haven't straightened the outside wall, haven't found contact with any of their competitors. So a lot of respect being shown out there after a little sort of pre-summer break that we got here in this championship, and everyone's just doing a good job. It's one of the greatest things about this track at Michigan. Like I said, it's well liked. You can race people hard. You can sort of take a passive approach to it, get a lot of tire drop-offs. There's a lot of things that happen here at a complex track like this, and you're absolutely right. It's been one of the better races, I think, thus far this season. I mean, right now our leader is just shy of 8 seconds out in front of the second spot, but considering people that are running second, third, fourth all had issues on pit road and lost a lot of time, I think that doesn't really tell the entire story, but it's been a good run up until this point. I think it's going to be a good kind of second half of the race here as we get ready to get to that midway point.
And something that's funny as well, we talk about Luza being back on track here tonight, Tim, and if somebody maybe have missed some of these past weeks or last couple of races, again, didn't have him with us, and a lot of drivers talk about the momentum, and you get into the middle of the season, you want to stay into a rhythm, and these drivers are used to the fact that new builds come in. It happens every single year we run this NASCAR Peak Antifreeze iRacing series, but I mean, Luz is just hopping right back into things, and that week or two off not appearing to affect him at all, jumps right back in stride, and the balance between he and Hurst is kind of evened out at the moment. We might see a fight for second here before this runs over. Sherburn's within a second down. We'll keep a half eye on that, but I think it's impressive for Luza to step away for a bit and come back in this race. Obviously, he lost a little bit in the points, still well in the playoff picture, and to just be able to jump back in right in stride, exactly, I think, was what he was looking for coming back into this season after not necessarily getting what he was hoping for in the first times out.
But he can't afford another mulligan. If he's planning on making the playoffs, he really can't afford one bad miscue. We've seen it before where leaders get caught up in lap traffic and it ends their night, or they're down on pit row with a ton of damage. You really can't afford another bad race if you're Ryan Lewis. If you're those guys that are near the front of the standings and really haven't had a bad night yet, you don't wish it upon them, but they could very well have that with their one drop included and factored into the quote-unquote regular season before you hit the playoffs. But right now, Ryan Luza looking good up in front, and it looks like, and we've seen it on that first run, Evan, Ryan Luza seems to be really good in the second half of the run on. He's tacked a little bit of time onto the lead that he's had, that Taylor Hurst had bitten into a little bit. It's now back to almost 8 seconds between those two. And as you mentioned, Shearburn, a 10th here, a 10th there, a 100th here, a 100th there, trying to get up into Taylor Hurst's zip code right now. And you can see those two as they come off of corner number 4. Shearburn is probably going to be there prior to the next round of green flag pit stops. And then everybody else just trying to pick up what they can here as we near the halfway point in this one.
It closed it in on the halfway point. That one just going to be at a lap or so. Once we officially cross halfway, we'll take a look down at the bottom at your iRacing midway race break. But this is when being consistent definitely can pay off for you, Randy. There's so much made about restarts and the ability to get the job done on said restarts and capitalize. But at a racetrack like this, again, where and I think it's very easy to tell. We mention it every week with this dynamic track surface that makes the iRacing service so good, just like it is. But the pavement here at MIS so light in color that it's very easy to see that asphalt has been darkened by the rubber getting put down, and you can see just how wide the line is. For all of those little bit of discrepancies, you can very easily, I think, have a little bit of a slower lap and really not feel that different, or have a little bit of a quicker lap and not feel that different because, you're half a lane off or so, and it's all within the realm of possibility. If you can go one of these 40-lap stretch from a pit stop to a pit stop and stay disciplined, I think that'll really show you some of the drivers who aren't the best of their game, I'd say.
Definitely would. I mean, you talk about giving Ryan Michael Luza, he's now starting to hit some lap traffic. The number 8 of Adam Gilliland is going to be the first driver he puts down a lap here. It's these guys right now are in a rhythm, and the field has gotten itself so spread out that I think we're probably going to see most of these people go 45, maybe closer to 50 laps, kind of really stretch this as far as they can on this set of tires to get as far to the end as they can. And when you're this kind of spread out, it's almost like all the work you would have done in a test session in the weeks kind of building up to this sort of, okay, it's what do I have to do? I don't have a bunch of cars in front of me generating dirty air. I don't got a bunch of people working the slipstream and poking the nose heading into 1 or heading into 3 on me. You can kind of just get smooth and get into a rhythm. And I kind of made a, sort of talking about qualifying, made a sort of comparison to endurance racing earlier. It's pretty much the same way right here. This phase of a race is just, can you get to a certain kind of set of autopilot, still put in very, very fast and quick laps, not really put any risks out there, not risk anything, and still potentially move your way forward if necessary. I think that's what's really going to separate this. As I say that and everything gets tossed up, yellow flies on the racetrack.
Caution flag is out right at the halfway point, and it is the 55, I believe, of Brian Schoenberg. So the yellow flag is out. Schoenberg got sideways coming off at turn number 4. The car went for a quick spin, and he was able to immediately recover, but that is enough for the caution flag to come out. Doesn't come from any of our 2 and 3 wide fights. It looks like it is just a single car spin, Tim, for the 55 machine of Schoenberg. And just like that, in the blink of an eye, we're talking about getting locked in and setting it on autopilot. And you'll see it right here on the RaceSpot TV replay as the back end goes around. And it was a very easy, lazy spin that he did a good job of hanging on to. But just like that, this race now completely different with a yellow, a lap 64.
And I'm sure Brian hates to be the guy to bring out the yellow flag, but it doesn't really change strategy a whole lot. We're going to probably come down pit road here and get tires and fuel in the car, and we're still going to need another pit stop to get to the end of the race, as the 8 car of Adam Gilliland 1 lap down on the outside of Ryan Luza in the pack. Luza will lead this field down onto pit road, and we'll see who comes out in front. Obviously, that's one caution Luza didn't want to see. 8-second lead has evaporated. Shearburn, I don't think, wanted to see that caution either, Evan, because he was working on Taylor Hurst.
He was doing a good job of closing in the gap. Instead, a couple of positions might be decided on the pit lane. It'll add a stop into the mix, but you're exactly right. We're still going to need one more pit stop from this point on to the end to get to the end of this race. So if we were to stay green, the strategy is the same, but first you need to execute on pit road and not give anything up. The tire fall off has been so extreme, Randy, looking for everybody to go for 4 tires at a fuel. Losing that number 1 pit stall's got a good shot at leading this one off, as he was the first driver in and out. Rights, lefts are on, and nice and easy for the 6 car.
Nice and cool here. Second spot looks like it's going to go to Zach Novak. It's very well done for him. Shearburn goes up to 3rd. Mullis up to 4th. And I think Keegan Leahy will round out your top 5. And then it's going to get very, very tightly contested up and down the rest of the field, of course. But you're right. I think in terms of people who didn't want to see this, that number 6 car, I think he would have been just fine with this race going green to the end.
I know Taylor Hurst really didn't mind the yellow because he was getting caught very quickly by Chris Shearburn, but he made a mistake coming into pit road, overshot the box, had to back up. He entered pit road in the number 2 position, and I think he ends up exiting at about 7th or so. So that's definitely going to mix things up. We're now past the halfway point, so this portion of tonight's broadcast is brought to you by Herculiner Bedliner, the tough comes easy. And as we get set to come by the start-finish line this time as well, it's a good opportunity to re-rack them and restack them. Let's take a look at our iRacing Midway Race Break, brought to you by iRacing, the leading online racing simulation developed from the beginning as a centralized racing and competition service. iRacing organizes, hosts, and officiates races on virtual tracks all around the globe. And in the fast-paced world of eSports, iRacing is a one-stop shop for online racing with officially sanctioned series for the likes of NASCAR and many more. You do see the O2 machine staying out in front. That is a lapped car. It is Ryan Luza is your race leader at lap number 67, and Zach Novak successfully moving into the number 2 spot. Chris Shearburn scored in 3rd at the moment. Jimmy Mullis, one of your biggest movers inside of the top 10, he's up to P4, and Keegan Leahy right there in the number 5 position. P6 right now, Corey Vincent. Taylor Hurst scored in 7th spot. David Rattler in P8. Matt Busa has slid to P9, and Nicholas Shelton rounds out your top 10.
Sitting in position number 11 right now is Ray Alfala. Christian Chalner in position number 12. Watch for him to make a move back up into the top 10. Logan Clampett in 13th, Michael Conti 14th, and Casey Kerwin complete your top 15. Just outside that top 15 is Nick Ottinger. He sits in 16th. Colton Davis in 17th. Jarl Tien up 4 spots into 18th. 19th, Andrew Fash in 3rd. He's been on the move this evening. And Brandon Pipgrass, we've seen him near the front of the field. Now he sits in position number 20. Expect that number 29 to move a little closer towards the front of the field.
And as we move down towards the tail end of the field, Jake Sturgis is in 21st, Michael Guest 22nd, Nolan Scott 23rd, Marcus Richardson 24th, Casey Tucker 25th, Joe Lottarello in 26th, Brad Davies 27th, Chris Overland 28th, Ryan Lowe 29th, Blake Reynolds rounds out your top 30, and Phil Diaz, Bobby Zielinski, Brian Schoenberg, Adam Gilliland, and Alex Bergeron round out the 35-car field, and all 35 cars are still on the racetrack without a lot of damage.
This goes to show you how good of a race it's been thus far. That's a look at your iRacing Midway Race Break. For more information on the wide variety of sim racing possibilities online, you can visit iRacing.com to sign up today. And if you are again looking for a first-time iRacing subscription, as the lights go out on top of the pace car and we get set to go back into green flag racing conditions, it is up to 40% off all new iRacing memberships. You can commit to it, get a full 2-year subscription, or if you just kind of want to dip your toes in the water, get your feet wet, you can get as little as a 3-month subscription starting at $5. That includes all the basic cars and tracks that you need to get your sim racing career started. Again, all that information is at iRacing.com/membership. And the 40% off discount is valid on new iRacing memberships only. So all of a sudden, guys, it is a brand new race. We no longer care about the number 125 in which we started, because we basically got a whole field just like we did 68 laps ago. Instead, this time, obviously, we race with much less than half the distance left in this race. So it's a brand new go at it. Ryan Lewis is going to have to try to work at an 8-second advantage. It's going to be very difficult for him to get away. And I think maybe, Tim, these drivers, knowing that if he can get out in front, he will absolutely take off, they might be a little bit more inclined to give him a hard time here right out of the gate.
We'll see what happens here on this restart. That number 15 on the outside is Zach Novak. We'll see if he can get out front, capitalize, and get some clean air. But Ryan Luza, he's been the class of the field so far. We'll see what he can do here in the second run and see if we can get to that green flag pit stop.
This car going to get out of it, and absolutely no hesitation from Ryan Luza. Green flag back in the air. Lap number 68 falls to the wayside. We take lap number 69. A much better start, but the car's tucked up on the back end of the 6 on the inside of the racetrack. Shearburn going to stay P2 as they spread them wide in the corner. With the 24 to Keegan Leahy trying to get by the 15 to Novak. That'll end up being your first side-by-side down the back.
I think we may have had a little bit of a choreographed start there, because those first 3 cars on the inside, Phenom, and you know that they want to try to control those front couple spots if they can. They have the top 2, and it's right now all on the shoulders of Keegan Leahy to slip up into that 3rd spot, but not going to be able to work the momentum on Zach Novak coming off corner number 4. We know that bottom groove has sort of gone away in the 3 and 4 end of the racetrack. You also have Jimmy Mullis there very close to the rear end of that 24 car. Looked to have a good run coming off corner number 4, just couldn't quite get to the outside of him as they head through 1 and 2 once again. This can be Phenom 1 and 2 with Leahy wanting to pick it up, but Zach Novak's got to run. He's going to look to the inside of Chris Shearburn down this long back straightaway and in towards 3 and 4.
And look to the inside, and it'll be side-by-side for P2. That's music to the ears of Ryan Luza out in front, who would love these drivers to fight with each other and allow him to check out. A little bit of a better run off of the quarter for the 50 to Novak, but it thinks, or at least it appears, that those will even out in the fight for second, and it'll be a nose-to-nose battle by the time we get back down to corner 1. Keegan Leahy behind them has ended up in 4th position. Jimmy Mullis has scored in 5th, and it looks like Novak upper hand down low will clear by a car length off of the corner, and the 24 slots right into his position. It's not at 36. A Shearburn in trouble. Caution flag, though, and it's problems behind. A couple of cars around as they scatter on a back straightaway. Nolan Scott, one of the cars sideways. That's the 16 Ford that you see there, but it started in front of him with the 29 of Brandon Pipgrass. Right there, you saw the contact. The 3 machine got checked up. It was just a really tight battle between, looked like Fayash, Davis, and Tien, and they all lifted out of the gas. Pipgrass got into the 3 machine, which eventually hooked him around in front of traffic, and that was on from there.
And they'll scatter down the back. I think Casey Tucker got a little piece of that with the 29. And looking at this, yeah, the 77 of Fayash, the 11 of Davis definitely get close and really know where to go for those two. It's trying to fit a bunch of square pegs into round holes. It didn't really work at a corner number 2, and that will set us under our second caution flag of the evening. Tough break for Pipgrass. He was running near the front of the field a little bit earlier on, and now the crew's going to have to do a little bit of work to that number 29 car.
And maybe the record of saying all the cars that started this race are still in this one might be in a little bit of jeopardy. There was a lot of damage on a couple of those cars that had got turned around on the back straightaway. The one advantage, if any, is that, Randy, we're racing at Michigan, not Bristol, so they had plenty of space on the inside of the racetrack to spread and get out of the way. One question is, do you come down and pit? The 6 Alusa wants nothing to do with it, but Novak, Leahy, Shearburn, nearly everybody else top 10 wants to come down pit road for fresh tires and fuel.
Yeah, interesting strategy coming through here. So Ryan Michael Luz is going to be the first car to not come down pit road. And it's going to be the 74 Taylor Hurst. So your top 2, they want nothing to do with pit road. Everyone else is going to come down for tires and fuel. Normally, I'm really surprised we didn't see someone who's running 10th, 15th stay out here, because it wasn't a very long run. You'd only have a couple lap holder tires. I think if you were somewhere in the top 10, top 15, I think this would have been a great opportunity for a Nicholas Shelton, a Ray Alfala, a Logan Clampett, Kerwin, a Conti, an Ottinger, any of those guys up around to about 20th, 25th. even Bobby Zielinski, who I think had an issue on pit road on the first cycle of pit stops and fell from, I think, running for about 13th all the way down to dead last. I think this would have been a fantastic opportunity to stay out and pick up a ton of free track position. Instead, everyone comes down pit road, and it's just the top two who are going to stay out.
And that's a position where, Tim, you're really stuck between a rock and a hard place, because that yellow at the halfway point obviously kind of threw a little bit of a wrench into things, but at the end of the day, you still need to come down and pit one more time. We're still in that situation. Obviously, that was by far the shortest run we saw on the evening. So we're working lap number 73. You're not going to be able to go, the 52 laps that would be required to get to the end of this race. So you're still in the same position. So I like the call to come down pit road, maybe lose Hurst overthinking it a little bit, not wanting to. Obviously, if you're the leader, you come down pit road. Your fear is everybody else stays out. You get stuck back in traffic. I think if you take that out of the equation, the obvious decision is to come down and pit, but maybe he overthought that a little bit too much or didn't want to take that risk, and he'll stay out now. We'll see just how important 10-15 laps on tires are.
And they both have really good race cars up in front, do Ryan Luza and Taylor Hurst. The other thing might be thinking too is we've seen a couple of these races have a rash of cautions or a boatload of cautions, and maybe that's what they're thinking. If we get 2 or 3 cautions and then that puts us in the pit window, more than likely everybody's going to come down to pit road at that time as well. So maybe they're thinking strategy-wise on that sense, maybe banking on a couple of cautions here in the next 15 or 20 laps or so. That would put everybody within reason on that pit window. But if you're Ryan Luza, I really don't think you have to worry. If you're Taylor Hurst, you still have a really good race car out there. Even if you fall a couple of positions, it's not really a huge loss at this point. We'll see what happens here when we do go back to green flag racing. But Ryan Luza up in front has been really strong all night long. I don't think this is going to waver him a whole lot.
He's definitely had a great race car, and it's tough to say, Randy, if you come down pit road and 10 drivers see that change their mind and you fall back to 11th, it's difficult to say if you're him. You might get passed by Leahy or Sherburne here, but if you only fall to 3rd and 4th, it's difficult to say, well, it could have been worse, because you just simply don't know. But Luza has had the best car tonight. He has been the best when it comes to executing on that green flag cycle to pit stops, nearly quadrupled the advantage he had on the rest of the field. That's how he got 8 seconds down in front at that juncture in the race. Taylor Hurst has had a good car, maybe not showing as much speed as we saw in the 6th, although in the 74's defense, pretty difficult to do so when you're in the middle of the pack and fighting with each other compared to when you're the one lone car out front. So we should see the lights go out on top of the pace car here, and I can guarantee you it's going to be the biggest challenge that those two have faced so far tonight, as the lights do go out on the pace car. So we'll put lap number 75 behind us, and it'll be a nice even restart with 50 to go.
Yeah, it's going to be, I think that's one of the reasons I like staying out here, because if like Tim said, if we get a couple trains of cautions here, if it takes us to lap 85, lap 90, and we get to there under yellow, suddenly these guys that didn't pit look like they're in a fantastic situation. Now, granted, so many people pit behind them that I don't think there's anyone that really would have picked up or lost a bunch of positions, but it's just one of those things. With 10 laps to go, kind of that's going to be roughly where the pit window opens. It's going to be interesting to see. I still think we're going to see the 6 and the 74. I think for the first couple laps, they're going to be at a pretty big disadvantage. But once those tires start to sort of even out for the rest of the field, then they'll be able to settle out. They might drop a couple of positions early, but I think after that, they should be able to settle in right around top 4, top 5, maybe top 10 if they really don't get things right here on this restart. They're getting ready to go.
Well, that's going to be the key, and we saw just how good the coordination was the last time up on the front row for the restart. We'll see if Luza can get that advantage once more. We've only seen, again, what a restart at the start of this race. You have a lot less flexibility on when you can actually, put the right foot down and officially restart the race here. So he went very early last time. Let's see what happens this time as the pace car heads down and in. 75 laps going to be complete. Still 50 laps to go on the scoring pylon from Michigan International Speedway. Luza going to wait a little bit longer. Holds for 2 seconds. Now 3 seconds, and he goes. He survives the tire spin. 3 wide behind him, though, as Sherburne couldn't get going.
Busa hops out to that outside to go 3 wide. We saw 3 wide a little bit earlier in the race as well on that initial start when Matt Busa had Ray Alfalo to the outside. Maybe he learned something there as Taylor Hurst is going backwards on the outside line. Busa is going to be boxed in. We'll see what he does. Does he take it 3 wide? Yes, he does. Are we going to go 4 wide down the back straightaway? Oh man, Vincent thought about it. They're going to go back to 3, and Matt Busa is going to try to squeeze his way from the middle up 2 spots.
To find his way through, and there goes the 6 of Luza on the outside, caught standing still on those old tires. 3 wide up the middle is Busa. Here comes the 10 of Vincent, pushing his way through. And this is really that 6 caught out of guard here. Keegan Leahy in the 24 car will be the one who goes to the race lead in this one. No surprise, as he was the first car off of the pit lane on fresh tires. He's not home free though. Mullis still there in second, about Busa in third. But how far will Ryan Luza fall back in the pack? On the outside line now is the 77 of Fayash, the next driver on by. The 05 machine. Here comes Conti in the 78 of Challenger. There's nothing he can do to stop this.
Well, so much for what I was expecting to happen to this 6 machine is going to settle out somewhere around, 15th, 16th out here on the racetrack. Gets to 10th, so not as bad as I would have thought. But yeah, Marcus Richardson, still a lot of cars around him. That 6 car, I think, is still going to continue to go backwards, but I think it's still going to be these first opening couple laps. The pace advantage is huge for the rest of these guys. Still people cycling through, and Luza has been stuck in the middle of a 3-wide situation with what feels like an eternity here as he heads down the back straightaway, and he's going to get gobbled up by one sandwich and eaten by another. No, Brad Davies is going to shove it to the outside on him. I thought he was going to, but they head off of corner number 4 and down the front straightaway once again. Luza continues to fall backwards. We did have an incident, by the way, on the restart. The number 41 of Jake Sturgis got caught up in that, as well as the 12 machine, and Nick Shelton. He's sort of the one that started it. Got a lot of wheel spin getting on the throttle and kind of got sideways. Spun up towards the racetrack. We stayed green, but a couple cars do have damage, and Sturgis did come down pit road.
And the 6 machine continues to fall back. The only reason we're seeing any 2-3 wide action is simply because it's just the group of cars trying to get around the 6. Other than that, it's the sense of 2x2 that we would expect off of a restart. But I think we knew that there was going to be a tire disadvantage there, Tim, but I did not think it was even going to be any remotely close to how bad it has been for him. Blake Reynolds can't get him at the line, so Luza maintains 20th for the time being. It has been an atrocity for the 6 car after being so good for so long. And again, the most difficult part about this is look at Overland down into the part of the racetrack way down low, but there's no rubber. The worst part about for the 6 machine here is you just can't do anything about it.
And up in front, battle for the lead. Jimmy Mullis to the inside of Keegan Leahy as he'll dance for the top spot. Mullis tries to clear the 24 off 4. He will slides up in front. The 24 will go back to the inside, try to cross him. Oh, he's going to turn the door. He's going to go around.
Mullis is off and into the grass, and he is going to hang on, so no caution, and we stay green. But Jimmy Mullis made the pass for the race lead. You saw the 24 go down low, and as the 27 came to shut the door, there was zero intention by Leahy to roll out of the throttle and let that happen, and he sent Mullis off and into the grass. And Mullis, again, a good job of recovering, but the top 2 get into it. Jimmy Mullis is going to find himself now way back out of the top 25.
I think that's a good move there, honestly, from Keegan Leahy, because Jimmy Mullis, he wanted to block the inside, but he wasn't super aggressive about it. He tried to do what Paul Tracy would affectionately call the Pruitt fade and just slowly drive down to the inside, take as much of the track as he can. You know what, I have to say, good on Keegan Leahy for keeping his foot down to the floor, as we are going to get a caution here just a couple of laps later, but the 24 Keegan Leahy will still hold on to the race lead.
Was half expecting to see that same car around again, but this one is for David Rattler. You'll take a look on the replay right there, and at that angle it looked like there was contact from the 66 car of Blake Reynolds. We'll get a second look at this one, no doubt. It was a 3-wide fight, and you know, Rattler's way up top, and it looked like right there he got either into him or awfully close to him, and it definitely sent Rattler around without much of an opportunity for him to catch it, and he backs it into the outside wall. That's what sent the car all the way around. Very fortunate, Tim, that Mullis doesn't come in there in the 27 and T-bone him, although Mullis does get up into the outside wall and damage his car, avoiding that stationary car on the outside of the racetrack. So how's that for a couple of laps there? Crazy restart. Your race leader's getting into it, and now a yellow only 7 laps later.
That's the caution flag that Ryan Luza really wanted, Taylor Hurst really wanted. They're going to have the opportunity to come in and get tires. I would assume everybody else would by what we just saw from the 6 and the 74, but Ryan Luza last time by scored in 19th. Taylor Hurst scored in 21st. So it's going to definitely change things up a little bit. Keegan Leahy will come down onto pit road first, and we'll see what changes. And this is the time in the race where we're going to start to see drivers really push heavy towards the front of the field to try to make it happen. And we saw those drivers going at it for the lead position with Keegan Leahy and Jimmy Mullis, and Mullis going around. And you better believe Mullis is going to probably be up on the wheel here trying to get his way back up towards the front of the field as the field comes down to pit road.
And the way that these last 20 laps or so have gone, it wouldn't suggest that we're going to have a squeaky clean finish. But we're pretty close here with lap number 84 now in the works. Just over 40 laps to go. Awfully close to being, I think we are within the window to be able to make it to the end of this race with the fuel you get in the pit stop here. A mistake on pit road though. Zach Novak overshoots the box. It's going to cost him some time as he came in 4th position. The call is going to be 4 tires. You're going to fill it up on a fuel in case we go caution-free to the end. And Keegan Leahy challenged, but he hangs on. Leahy holds off Busa out of pit road. Alfala, Vincent, Challoner, the top 5. And it is a big headache for Zach Novak, who drops nearly half a dozen.
I think he's really only the big driver that really loses a bunch there. Everyone, kind of up or down 1 or 2 at most throughout the rest of the field. But yeah, unfortunate there. Just that one little mistake on pit road. We've seen that over the course of this season. One little mistake at the wrong time can really, really hurt you. And I think the one thing that's important to note here, everyone can make it to the end here if we do not get a yellow. So fuel shouldn't be a concern. But tire strategy, if we get yellows late, of course, it can be very important.
Now you pick up the pieces, and for the second or third time in as many restarts, we recalculate with a completely different complexion to this race now. Any other time you get a yellow and you're within the striking distance of being able to go with the fuel on board to the end, Tim, I'd say that's it. You got your pit stop, let's race it out. But, well, these drivers have not been racing in the last 15 or 20 laps like they did in that opening 60.
Yeah, you start to see a little bit of that sense of urgency really come into play here as we get a little bit closer towards the checkered flag and that pay window opening at the end of this one. Keegan Leahy obviously strong. I'm interested to see what Ryan Luza, Taylor Hurst can do here because they do have fast race cars. But we saw it a little bit earlier too with Keegan Leahy losing 2nd place, falling back to 5th or 6th on that first round of green flag pit stops. Really wasn't able to push hard towards the front of the field compared to guys like Zach Novak that were just ahead of him at the time. See what the Luza machine can do. We'll see what Taylor Hurst can do and see what those guys can accomplish here in this final segment of this race, trying to get to the front of the field and trying to salvage a good point. Now, we mentioned earlier, Ryan Luza can't afford another mulligan here.
And it was not looking like he was going to need it. We were talking about how good he was coming back into this race, jumping right back in stride with everybody else, and something as simple as not making the right call on pit road cost you over 20 positions, an opportunity to battle for the race lead, and of course, a lot of points that you don't necessarily have the liberty of giving up with your absence in a couple of these past weeks. The good news, if any, is that I don't see any cars that have yet gone to the garage. 3 cars are off for the lead lap. Alex Bergeron and Jarl Tien are both 2 laps down. In 35th and 34th position, respectively. Tien's car is stationary on the pit lane getting serviced, so his night may very well be done, but it has not been officially retired. And then Jake Sturgis is only 1 lap down in 33rd. Other than that, you might have a little bit of damage, but you're still on the lead lap. So for all of the craziness we've seen in the last couple of laps, we've had a lot of cars spin and not hit anything.
Yeah, that's really sort of the important thing. And you talked about that. There's a lot of place here at Michigan where you can sort of spin and not hit anything. The old Pocono used to sort of be like that as well. Now in the newer version that we just recently got on the sim, not so much of that is you can really do that. Not as much space, just sort of an example to put out there. So I think we're going to see, I think the aggressiveness is about to go up a tick. You're inside of the final 40 laps. We've traditionally seen that in this series. Once we get to about halfway, just over halfway, people start getting a lot more aggressive with one another. They keep their foot planted when they might have lifted earlier on in the race. We just saw that from Leahy and Mullis, didn't we? So I think that we're likely to need a couple more yellows. How are they going to fall and how are they going to affect tire strategy is going to be the really interesting thing here as we get ready to go to green inside of 38 laps to go.
And we're in a tricky spot as well, as you mentioned, inside of 38 to go here. We'll be right on the number there as we get set to come to the restart. Is it late enough to the point now where we're just going to get a bunch of short runs, or do we have a 15 or 20 lap sprint left in us? Because if we get that little bit more, again, nobody's ever surprised when you get a group of yellow flags late in a race, but we're at the point now where we're not really at that point yet. We are inside of the fuel window, which I think definitely constitutes the fact that we're within the home stretch, and you definitely turn things up a notch, but not quite sure that we're done here yet. We'll just see how well everybody wants to behave on another race start. So with 86 laps now going to be complete, Keegan Leahy, Matt Busa side by side on the front row. Going to restart with Alfala, Vincent, Challenger in the top 5. Ottinger, Shearburn, Kerwin, Richardson, and Clampett. Your running order through the top 10. Not much hesitation for the 2-4, and a lot less tire spin this time around as we go re-green and take lap 87.
Down into corner number 1, Ray Alfala will look to the inside line and try to take position number 2 away from Matt Busa. We've seen these drivers battle on restarts already this evening. It'll be Ray Alfala getting the upper hand on this one. That 10 trying to roll the top on the outside of the 78 of Challenger. And where did Nick Ottinger come from? Ottinger in the top 10 looking on that outside line.
He's boxed in right now with Challenger working on the inside of the racetrack. I think he wants to get out from behind Corey Vincent, and the 14 machine's not waiting around. Kerwin get a sidestep. He'll go high to low. Tucking line behind Shearburn. Want to go to the inside of Shearburn. Do you commit to the block? No. The
we got another spin behind.
Caution.
Bunch of cars rounding in the grass. I see the 13 of Brad Davies. Taylor Hurst is involved. Nolan Scott. Who is that? Chris Overland. We got one car on his lid. That is
Scott.
Yeah, that is Nolan Scott. Excuse me. So we got 4, 5, 6 cars all involved in another incident here on the front straightaway.
He was screeching halt on his lid. Nolan Scott, the more spectacular side of that accident. He was really not what happened at the start of it all. Look at the left-hand side of your screen with the 8 machine right there. That's where the contact's going to come from there. Looks like a little bit sideways off in the corner for Adam Gilliland in a 3-wide position just next Taylor Hurst. And the 8 does a good job of hanging on, but that 74 snaps up the hill. And that is where the 16 machine makes a full body check into the outside wall. And Nolan Scott climbs the wall, goes up and on his lid. You see a couple of cars down to the grass. Brad Davies with quite the launch, Tim, down there in the grass with the victory lane being down there. There's a little bit of a hump down in the grass, and well, he definitely took a little bit of a jump there as he spun down into the grass trying to avoid it. Got a couple of feet of air underneath the 13 machine before he eventually was able to hang on to it down in 1 and 2. But what a wreck that time. Spectacular cars and grass and sparks and all of that on the front straightaway as this race continues to get a little bit more insane.
You mentioned before the green flag. Are we at the point where we see the rash of caution flags and we're done with a long green flag run? I think that might have been our best opportunity to see that 15 or 20 lap run that you mentioned, Evan. But we got a couple laps in, and then that happened on the front straightaway. I don't think we're done seeing caution flags. Do we see a long green flag run? I'm not really sure right now. As Busa, Ray Alfala, Keegan Leahy up in front. Keegan Leahy, I think at this point, is one of the drivers that is the class in the field right now. Ray Alfala in the 2 has been strong, as has Matt Busa. But how about some names we really haven't talked about all night long? Nick Ottinger's in the top 10. He's in 7th place. He was battling up in front before that caution flag came out. Casey Kerwin right there in 8th. Marcus Richardson in 9th. And Andrew Fayash III, we mentioned him a little bit earlier, battling for a top 20, then a top 15, and now he's battling for a top 10 spot late in this one. So as the caution flags work their magic and some of the drivers find themselves middle of the pack that might have been up front a little bit earlier, we're starting to see some new names crop up in that top 10.
Yeah, we were just getting an opportunity to really point out the likes of, Kerwin and Richardson up there, Nick Ottinger as well. When that yellow flag came out, you can also throw it back to our conversation about the, the qualifying. You see that up 20 spot, the plus 20 for Andrew Fayash, the third, who started in 30th and runs in 10th position right now. You always have to ask yourself, what if I started 10, 15 positions closer to the front? How good will I be, and what kind of a position would I be in come this stage in the race? But you can see the running order of the top 15 cars there on the left-hand side of your screen. We're closing in on the end of this race, and as maybe we have now officially reached that point in which it is a free-for-all at the end, we go into the final portion of tonight's broadcast. This portion is brought to you by Blue Def Diesel Exhaust Fluid, the #1 selling DEF in America. Lap number 90 in the works, so 35 to go this time by. Not expecting the lights to go out on the pace car quite yet, although you never know if everybody's been able to get back in line and get set to go green flag racing once more. 32 cars still on the lead lap, so we're not running out of cars to be able to fight with one another. So if anything, these more yellows just going to get guys a tad bit more antsy.
Yeah, I think everyone's going to be antsy, and you're right, lights are not going to go out on the pace car yet, so we should be getting 2 to go here. I will say that us having all these spins on the front straightaway, it's showing the nice little tire tracks that we have going down through the grass that we just recently got added in the new sim. So if there's anything, there is a positive side to all these guys going for trips down in the grass, and 13 of Brad Davies maximum destructing it all through the infield there.
You can see the part where noticeably those tire tracks go away in the grass, and then he comes back down.
Yeah, about 200 feet where Evil Knievel took over.
Right, and he didn't smoke victory lane, so the bushes are okay, but he came awfully close, and it is looking like a little bit of a mess out there on the front straightaway with all of those tire tracks. Grass flying and whatnot. Michigan, Tim, not necessarily a racetrack that comes to my mind, but I think of a track that you're going to see some spectacular and I don't know if visually pleasing accidents is the right word, but when you've got cars spinning each which way and stuff flying up in the air, you can't help but to want to take a second look. And we've got a couple of good looks at that accident on the RaceSpot TV replays there. But this isn't a track that you necessarily immediately associate with that kind of destruction, but you give guys an opportunity to win a race that I think in a position where I think the best car all night in Lusa still being, I think, a little bit too far back to fight for it with the amount of laps that are left and the amount of cars that are in between him and your race leader as he runs in 13th. You take away the notably fastest car and all of a sudden everybody, and to an extent rightfully, but everybody now thinks, hey, I've got a shot to win this race because the guy that was faster than everybody else is now behind me. So I think that as well is why the guys up front are a little bit more aggressive per se, as we now get the lights out on top of the pace car and we'll re-rack them and re-stack them and get set for another restart.
And now we'll have Ray Alfala on the outside of row number 1. We'll see what he can do with Keegan Leahy and see what kind of sense of urgency is behind them. Matt Busa's been running up front. Busa is looking to crack his way back into victory lane. And we have a lot of strong competitors up in front, names that haven't been to victory lane in a while. And you mentioned it gets a little bit closer to the end of the race. It gets a little bit closer to the checker flag. Everybody can see it. Everybody drives that little bit harder. Drives those 2 lengths or 3 lengths deeper into the corner than maybe the car will allow them to. And we've seen some of those spectacular wrecks, as you mentioned. High rate of speed here, too. Everything happens, and everything happens so quickly. So if somebody makes one small mistake, it ends up being a mistake of 4 or 5 other drivers in the field as the field works down the back straightaway, and we're getting ready to come back to green.
The no change for the control car position. The number 24 of Keegan Leahy once again going to be in control. Ray Alfala this time, though, jumps up for the inside of row 2 to the outside of the front row in now P2. So he'll join Leahy. Busa, Challenger back at row 2. Vincent Shearbird, row 3. Ottinger, Kerwood, row 4. Richardson, and now Fayash back 9th and 10th. On row number 5. Pace car back down and in. Again, inside of the fuel window, just trying to run this one out to the checkered flag and see if anybody else can get up into the conversation. Another great start for Leahy. Alfala immediately shuts it on to 34, trying to prevent Busa from doing what he did on the last restart, and it's a good way for him to defend P2.
Look at Luther. He's all the way down to the inside, going to make this 3 wide with Marcus Richardson and Casey Kerwin through 1 or 2, so he's going to look keen to pick up a couple spots early. I think he might be inside the top 10 now, maybe even more. So the 6 machine of Luzik maybe got a good jump here on this restart, moves down to the inside and in towards 3 and 4. They're 3 wide behind him as well. The 55 is Schoenberger's there. The 83 is Zelensky in that fight as well. And I think the 6, they're going to fan out nearly 5 wide, in fact, here toward the tail end of the top 10. I think the 6 of Ryan Michaeluza will be somewhere around P8 at the end of this first lap. So what a restart from him. Up 5 in 2 miles.
And they're using every single inch of that wide front straightaway to fan about 3 and 4 wide. They tied them and packed down into turns 1 and 2. Awfully close together, though. You see some 3 wide towards the back there, a whole lot of 2 wide. Battle for the race lead may be on shortly, but not yet. So we continue to watch everybody in the middle of the pack trying to sort things out. But Alfala has been all over Keegan Leahy. Alfala made a nice move, 3rd to 2nd on the last restart. He knew Busa was going to try that exact same thing. So he came down and committed to the block, shut the door, and now he wants to go to the race lead for the first time tonight. Here comes Alfala side by side with Leahy, and he got it. Ray Alfala to the race lead at lap number 95.
Lots of patience in that move. The last lap by in turn 2, he had to feather the gas a little bit. You could see the rear end get a little bit light behind that number 24, Keegan Leahy. A little bit better in 1 and 2 as we saw that time compared to the 24, and he's even better here in clean air coming out of corner number 4. Ray Alfala will come down this time and lead his first lap of the evening to complete lap number 95, the 2 to the top of the board. And now you see the battle just behind them. Ryan Luza picks up a spot. Nick Ottinger is side by side with Shearburn as they continue to go at it. Looks like they've got a couple of laps in. A couple of drivers have found a place to race, but if you're Shearburn, Richardson, you got the 10 of Corey Vincent on back, you're still fighting to get up into the top 5, top 10, or whatever that position is here late.
And maybe running in 13th wasn't too far back for Luza because he's been able to get to the top 5. He is within 1 second of Alfala, but the big thing is, again, he's no longer back where you see all of that 2 and a little bit of 3 wide at about the 20th position coming off of the quarter. He's up toward the top 5 and single filed out. So if Luza still has that race leading speed in that Ford Fusion that it had earlier on in this race, he has a legitimate opportunity to get up there, fight with Challenger for 4th, and then see what may come from that. But plenty of action going on throughout the pack. It's really holds your breath top to bottom, as really nobody is wanting to separate off to the race start. It's all crazy back in the pack. You see a battle right now with the 47 of Oberlin, the 27 of Jimmy Willis. That one in particular for 17th and 18th position, as maybe now drivers start to find a spot in line.
I think the tires are starting to heat up a little bit because they can't run all those crazy lines everyone was in those first couple laps on the restart here. They head off towards 1 and 2. Two Machines did a good job to open this gap up over Keegan Leahy, up just about north of 4/10 of a second right now. Matt Busa is trying to close in, though, on that number 24 car. Christian Challenger, of course, Ryan Michaeluza. He's gotten to the top 5, very aggressive there, but it's going to be a little bit more difficult to pass these guys that are now in that top 5 as they're going to go side by side for 6. Marcus Richardson, Nick Ottinger. They're going to be wheel to wheel. It's going to be Richardson who picks up that 6th spot. As Ottinger's going to try to work the cutback here off corner number 4, but I don't think he's got the run. And basically from about 6th all the way back to 31st is basically just one long train of cars and one long big pack at the moment.
And when we continue to see the musical chairs mid-pack, nothing has changed up front in the last few laps. Luza wants to change that, though. He's on the back bumper of Challenger, just in front of that group of cars you see coming off of the corner. He'll flash the nose to the inside, and we are going to go side by side for 4th and 5th position. Luza looking to pick up what would be already to this point now an 8th position off of the restart, and he is going to get it. So Luza into 4th. Never say never, as the number 6 not wanting to give up. 26 laps left to go.
Definitely lots of laps to work if you're Ryan Luza. Matt Busa, Keegan Leahy, Ray Alfala, though, really quick race cars. They get a little bit tougher as you get a little bit closer towards the front of the field. Ray Alfala's been able to gap Keegan Leahy a little bit, but there's Luza. What a run off corner number 2. Sucks right up to the back of the 34 and goes down to the inside. They'll battle for that 3rd place position. Luza pinching the 34 up the racetrack a little bit. He'll take that spot, and we'll see what Ryan Luza can do to reel in those other 2. And oh, by the way, as Busa loses that position, Christian Challenger is there. He's currently in position number 5, wants a little bit more, and trying to reel in that number 34 for fourth.
He wants to take advantage of the 34 Abusa maybe being a little bit flustered, just having been passed by Luza, and try to take another spot away. Don't look now, but look, Keegan Leahy also trying to fight with Alfala for the race lead. Ray picked up immediately 3 or 4 car lengths, but look how tight they are off for the quarter. And down the back straightaway, you look out the back end of the number 2 Ford Fugitive Alfala, and Leahy is right there. If they start fighting, you see that white car in the back? That's the number 6 of Ryan Luza. Well, that 9/10 of a second to get back to him is going to get awfully smaller the second these drivers want to dance with one another. So you have to figure it out if you're Leahy. Get the pass done now. Put as many cars in between you and Luza as possible. The most he can do is 1. So I think he needs to get around Alfala sooner rather than later, because if Luza catches up to him, the 24 is going to be the sit and duck in the middle.
I think if you do the 24 car, though, you don't want to push it too hard. We know these Phenom cars have amazing late-run speed, but we're not going to get there. A couple cars spinning off the exit of corner number 2. I think it's Chris Overland and maybe Bobby Zielinski down on the inside. That is who it is. So a little bit of contact. I don't think it was a big hit, because a couple cars end up facing the wrong way and get it figured out, and unfortunately it ends up being 2 teammates that maybe help Ray Alfala out a little bit, because that slip angle car, I think, is stronger on the short run. I think Lee and Luza, if it gets north of 15 laps, I think the Phenom cars have a huge advantage, but now the field gets reset on Ray.
And if you're a little bit better on one of those longer runs, not a yellow that you wanted to see, as that contact right there, and then Mullis really nowhere to go, gets into the back of Overland. Both of those cars spin, and kind of fit the quota of what we've seen tonight, an accident in which 2 drivers spin, and yet nobody really hits anything. Surprised at the fact, though, that actually did trigger a caution flag. Both of those cars went down to that big wide apron, but it does bring out a yellow, and just like that, we slow things down. Now there is no need to come down pit road, Tim Terry, and get fuel, but we have seen how awfully good fresh tires are. So, can we see drivers come in?
I would. After what we saw with Ryan Luza and Taylor Hurst, and Taylor Hurst is sitting on pit road with crash damage after trying to come from the rear of the field to the front of the field, I definitely would come down. I'd come down and take 4 tires and, make my own bet. Here comes the 2 of Alfala. Here comes the 24 Keegan Leahy. I don't know if we'll see anybody stay out, but we have seen that strategy play off before, or drivers take 2 tires. But it looks like, for the most part, everybody that is on the lead lap is coming down pit road.
And probably the right decision. We might see a little bit of discrepancy on if somebody wants to maybe dare with 2 tires from deeper in the pack, but look, for the drivers up front to want 4 tires, they want to be able to fight this one out with as good of a race car as they can get. The 36 of Chris Shearburn with a mistake. He cannot get that car into the box. He is still trying to get it in position. At about 6-7 seconds later, he finally does it. That's really going to hurt 7th place runner Shearburn, but a drag race off of pit road, and Ray Alfala going to get beat off of pit lane by both Keegan Leahy and Ryan Luza. That first car off of pit road, the 46 of Logan Clampett, he is the one who I think maybe mixed this one up and maybe only went with 2 tires or so, because Clampett made a mistake coming into the box. So it'll be 2 tires for Clampett, but 4 tires for Leahy and as well for Luza, and both of those cars pass Ray Alfala on pit road. Not even a noticeable mistake by the 2, but that's an awful lot to give up late.
Yeah, it's not a huge mistake, but at the same time, at this stage, it's a big mistake to make, especially with the quality of cars like Keegan Leahy and Ryan Michael Luza out in front of you. But you have a big wild card. What is going to happen with Logan Clampett? He's going to have old tires. I mean, we saw what happened to Ryan Michael Luza when he only was at, 2-3 lap old tires. And when he tried to stay out, he got swallowed up by the field, went back about 20 spots real quick. It's very likely this 46 car, being out here with 2 tires only on the right side, might be well off the pace and could fall like a stone in a pond here on this restart, and essentially do a bit of a cosplaying of that 6 car from earlier in the race.
And if you're Clampett, just the way that pit stop went down, Tim, it didn't appear to me that he had gone down pit road with the intention to go in 2 tires. And listen, if someone's going to make a call, it could easily be Logan Clampett. I wouldn't have been surprised. But he goes into that pit box and drives in way too deep, locks it up, overshoots the box, has to go into reverse. You figure he'd give up, 3 seconds doesn't sound like a lot, but when you got everybody bumper to bumper on pit road, that's easily a handful of cars, maybe 6 cars that you lose positions from. At that point, do you just kind of suck it up and go for the 4 tires? Because I would imagine that being at a 2-tire disadvantage might cost you at least those 6 positions. We won't know until we find out. We've seen what no tires does. Maybe 2 tires not going to be all that bad, but if it was indeed an audible call there by Clampett, kind of into uncharted territories, but based on the sample size we've seen, I do not want to be off on the tire strategy.
I think you're darned if you do, darned if you don't. Look, if you're Logan Clampett, you were running 11th or 12th coming onto pit road. If you take 4 tires, you're probably going to start around 30th place or so. If you dodge a couple of wrecks here near the end, you're likely going to be up where you were before. If you're starting up front and you're on 2 tires, you're going to fall back a little bit, but if you do grab a couple of cautions, you could very well finish and drop around to 15th place. So I think it's 6 and 1, half a dozen the other. If it was me, I probably would have taken 4 tires and dodged whatever was up in front of me and get up on the wheel and see what I can do. But it's competition back there as well that are on 4 tires, and with this racetrack, everybody middle of the pack is pretty much even. A little bit difficult to really pick your passes, but that's why we're up here and that's why they're down there on the racetrack. So we'll see what happens here as we get ready to go back to green. And if you're a Richmond Raceway fan, if you're a Chaos Crew fan, hold on to your hats. This one's going to be wild if you're Logan Clampett.
And we just saw Clampett there off of turn number 4. He abruptly accelerated, was doing about 68 miles an hour, quickly sped up to 80 miles an hour, stayed behind the pace car that entire time as we came to get to 1 to go. So maybe testing the waters a little bit, Randy, as much as you can, because he probably doesn't know how the 2 tires are going to react either. He has the control car position again, that's good, but what sweet irony it may be for Ryan Luza to make him. I mean, you know, if it's a differing strategy call, I'm not sure if mistake's the right word, but for how far off he was on those old tires compared to nearly everybody else who unanimously said, let's come down and get tires, I'm going to use the word a mistake. So the mistake on the strategy to then make up for that by driving like a madman through the field to get up into the number 3 position, and then at the time under yellow, get 2 more spots back for the 6 to now get up to P2. It would be somewhat sweet irony if he beats out a car on old tires to get back to the race lead.
Wood, that 46 car is going to have his work cut out for him. I think we're going to need another caution here to the end. The question is, will it help Logan Clampett, or will Logan Clampett be that yellow as we get ready to go?
His car down and in, 106 laps down. This race is going to restart with 19 laps to go. For the Michigan International Speedway, the 6 of Luza wants to get off and get going. The 46 of Clampett wants to slow everybody down. And it's a pretty good start for the 46, but there's the wheel spin. We're going to go 3, maybe 4 more, and Clampett goes high. He blocks Luza, but here comes Keegan Leahy, the 24 on the inside. Not going to matter, caution.
Yeah, he couldn't block 3 lanes, but it looked pretty entertaining trying to do so. And Chris Overland with a little bit of damage. When we saw the 46 of Clampett have that little bit of a wheel spin, you saw them fan out 4 and 5 wide, and Overland hard into the inside wall, and you'll see it here on the restart, starting on the outside. And there's that fanning out 4 and 5 wide. Everybody was brought down slow, and Overland goes to the inside, got Casey Tucker, and gets turned coming back down the racetrack. So Overland tried to do the same thing everybody else was doing, it looked like, Evan, trying to pick up a couple of positions and go where the other cars weren't, and it didn't pay off for him.
Yeah, it looked like, he just tried to split the difference there, and I think on the way through, he just barely clipped the left rear of that number 28 machine, Casey Tucker. That slowed him down to the point where he would then not be clear of the 66 of Blake Reynolds. If he didn't just nick that left rear of the 28, I think he makes a spectacular move to the inside of the racetrack, but unfortunately gets slowed down a little bit and ends up driving across the nose, and you saw Overland go down through the grass and into the inside wall, and that is what brings out another caution flag here at lap number 108. These late race restarts, if there's any question of your brass, well, you're having to show that you're willing to make the moves that it's going to take, and Logan Clampett's going to have his hands full here for a couple of moments as he gets mentally prepared for another race start. We take a quick opportunity to step aside with a quick word from our friends at NASCAR.com/tickets.
Things can get rough out there.
The bumper to the back of the 24!
You think you got the brass?
I proved it last season.
That was last year. Now we've got young blood ready to take out the old. Start your engines. It's time to race.
And back live for the virtual Michigan International Speedway, working under the caution flag at lap 109 of 125. In tonight's Michigan 250, it is race number 8 of the 2018 NASCAR Peak Antifreeze iRacing Series, and we're happy that you're with us on RaceSpot TV and iRacing Live. Evan Pasoko, Tim Terry, Randy Cheneth upstairs with you, with Hugo Louise downstairs. And well, the opening half of this race compared to the last 40 or so, Tim, basically unrecognizable. Clean, green, everybody on the lead lap, and then, well, a lot of carnage, a lot of restarts, and a lot of action, and it is not set to tone down anytime soon, because at 46 of Logan Clampett, who leads this race, is on 2 tires. Everybody else is on 4, and we could see him trying to block 3-4 lines at once. That yellow flag kind of bailed him out as we saw Overland spin across the grass and into the inside wall. I don't see Clampett being able to block that much real estate X amount more times, but you never know. As we come across the start-finish line, like staying on top of the pace car, that's one less lap that he has to worry about as I think we get the 2 to go.
The best chance, the best thing that he could have done as the leader, and obviously he has that prerogative to bring them down slow, but I think that was the best strategy for him to not get any wheel spin. We'll see what he can do here on this next restart. Obviously, everybody's going to anticipate him to do so, but on the other side, I don't think he can bring them down real quick because he'll spin the tires and he'll end up potentially in the infield. But you mentioned it too. There was 3 lanes that were coming at Logan Clampett down into corner number 1. There was no way he was blocking all 3, but the caution flag saved him on that occasion. See what he can do here on this next restart.
You have to now wonder who's going to be in the better position for this one, Randy, because Keegan Leahy outside of the racetrack was not restarting in second last time. It was, lose vice versa, and the number 46 machine made the decision to go up to the middle, block that 6, and it was basically open range for the 24 down low. It would have been basically an atrocious entry to 1 and 2, but Leahy had the opportunity to spread down low. This time, role reversal. He'll be on the outside of Clampett in a more easily blockable position, maybe, per se. The 46, I think, definitely has his sights set on that car up top, and it could put now Luza in the catbird seat inside of the second row to sneak underneath them.
Definitely like being on that outside, but it sort of depends on how much. Depends what Logan does. If Logan goes all the way down to the inside and underneath that white line, there won't be very much that the likes of Ryan Michael Luther will be able to do about it. So I like having the outside because you're almost guaranteed yourself a clean line, but at the same time, you do, if you can get down inside of the 46, the way that the 24 is able to, pretty much set yourself up to pick up a spot. So I don't think there's a spot that's guaranteed to be one way better or the other, but I think the outside, more often than not, will give you a clean line if you can time the restart. Luza just didn't time the restart the way he needed to last time, as the lights, I believe, has gone out, and we're going to be going green next time by.
And for the 46 at Clampett, he was testing out his tire spin, Tim. In theory, the best thing for the 46 is this: everybody else gets about as much tire spin as possible, and he does have to maintain that pace speed of about 70 miles an hour. You can see that on the right-hand side, but he waited a long time. Again, they have, from when the pace car ducks down to them actually getting to the exit of the restart box. That's a good 5 seconds or so here at MIS, and I'm sure it feels like a lot more than that when you're inside the car waiting for the 46 to go. But Clampett waited about as long as he could. I would think that's what he wants to do again, because it worked okay for him. He did have a big tire spin, though, when he shifted from second to third gear, but I have to wonder now if everybody else is going to be expecting and be a little bit more prepared for that late launch.
I think they have to be prepared for Logan to bring them down slow, but even if he does get a good launch and gets out in front, those old tires, I think, are going to have to bow out to the new ones. We'll see what happens here as the pace car gets ready to duck off.
We'll see what happens as the pace car gets set to head down to the safety of the pit lane. The 46 in control again. Logan and Clampett a little bit earlier this time. Green flag back in the air at lap 111. Leahy outside though, so it will be side by side for the race lead at 14 laps to go from Michigan. How well are those 2 tires going to hold up? So far, okay. Clamp it clear for a moment, and they'll end up side by side for a second, but there it goes. He can't keep the foot down, and the 6 of Lusa to the race lead.
I think Logan was steering to the right more than he was to the left through that whole corner. What does he do through 3 and 4? Because that car is scary loose on 2 tires, and you see him really working it up there. 24, Keegan Leahy's going to pick up a spot, and Logan's going to continue to fall. If he can even hold on to it, he'll be lucky to finish inside of the top 25, I think. But I have a feeling that 46 car is going to lose it before we get to the end of this thing, as Lusa moves his way into the race lead.
An awful good battle in between the 1 of Richardson, the 14 of Casey Kerwin. They've been going at it awfully good on the left-hand side of your screen in a battle for what I think is going to end up between 5th and 6th position. A lot of fighting as everybody tries to dispose of the 46 of Logan to clamp it, but it was Lusa who got to the race lead, and it was that role reversal. This time it was Leahy who advantaged from beat on the inside on the previous race start, got boxed out by that clamp it machine sliding wide on the corner, so Leahy ends up falling to 4th. So Lusa leads, Alfala is 2nd, and how about Zach Novak in the picture in 3rd? Look at that mid-pack fight, though. 3 wide throughout the rest of the field.
2 and 3 wide coming down near the end of this one. Colton Davis is in the middle. Nick Shelton in the middle in the 12. You got Michael Conti, Brian Schoenberg, the 2 Team Conti cars fighting on the outside. It's a hornet's nest back here. It's a ticking time bomb waiting for somebody to make one small mistake. But as they continue to run, keep an eye on the 2 of Ray Alfala. We saw on the earlier runs tonight that 6 car of Ryan Lusa was better than the 2. The 2 fell off a little bit on the longer run, but right now we've only got a short run to the end. We have 11 laps to go, and Ray Alfala within striking distance. He's won 2 here at Michigan before, looking for a 3rd.
And that 6 machine to lose, his car, I think, is really going to come into its element with about 5 laps left to go in this race. So if the 2 of Alfala is going to do something, now would be the time to do it. Looks to the inside of the racetrack. We come to 10 laps to go, and we're side by side for the race lead with Ray Alfala on that preferred lane. Oh, so smooth in the center of the corner. He's not going to clear him, but he will lead this time by the line.
He's going to have the lead here, and he's going to run the shortest line he possibly can. Going to try to come up the racetrack. Lusa's going to try to hold him tight. Actually, really not much. Gives Ray a lot of room to work with. And now Lusa going to work a little bit of a cutback. Going to be able to run the clean line. He's going to actually try to get all the way down to the bottom. Something you don't normally do. Going to work all the way wide and maybe scrape the wall just a little bit. I think that's going to hold Lusa up just a tad as the 2 machine of Alfala now leads this race down the back straightaway and in toward 3 and 4. And I think Lusa doesn't quite have the momentum. Not where he'd like to be. So now, how much can Ray mirror drive that 6 car while still being pacey? Can he hold on to this one? As the tires, I think, are going to go the way of Ryan Michael Lusa inside of the final 10 laps.
Look at the speeds that they're going to get up to as they head back down to turn 1, way up to 212 for the 6, and Alfala blocked him all the way to the inside, and then he walked him right back up top. Look at the 6 of Lusa, trying to go to the inside, can't get there, and it's very difficult, in fact, pretty much impossible for that 2 of Ray Alfala, Tim, to shake that 6 car. If he's on the bumper, he's got that draft on those long straightaways, and keeps him right there in the conversation. Same thing with Novak off of the back of Lusa in 3rd. These top 3 are not going to split apart.
And you can add Keegan Leahy to that mix as well. He is right there as they continue to mix it up. The 2 and the 6. Alfala and Lusa get a little bit of a gap away from the 15 at a corner number 4 that time. Great exit for those 2, but Ryan Lusa mounts a charge to the back bumper of the 2. Might have got him a little bit free in the middle of the corner. Novak is there, as is Keegan Leahy. The 6 car not afraid to use that bumper right tucked up tight. Goes to the inside, flashes the nose. Ryan Lusa wants this lead from Alfala. Alfala looking to hold him off.
Tries to throw a block, and there's going to be contact. Alfala gets loosened up by Ryan Lusa, who with the assist to the front bumper, and he hits him again now. Ray Alfala into the outside wall, coming to 7 laps to go, and that is really going to hurt the number 2 Ford. He got hit on the left rear, and then the 6 cut up a little bit soon, and Ray Alfala ushered out of the battle for the race lead.
Super aggressive there from Luza. I have to say, Ray was being aggressive with the blocks, though. And when you're as quick as that 6 car is late in the race, you're not going to be playing too nice here. But Zach Novak, very, very close to the rear of this number 6 car as well. He's been a little bit quicker the last couple laps, but Alfalo was out in front of the 6, holding him up. So will Zach Novak be able to make something of this? He has the run off of corner number 4. So we lose one fight for the race lead, and in 2 miles we get another. They head off into 1 and 2.
Zach Novak started this race in 3rd, but very quickly made a move up into that position. He was fighting at that time with the car behind him right now. He and Leahy have many a times tonight fought for 2nd and 3rd. With the 15 machine, Zach Novak looking to make that little bit of an extra step, and if he can peak late in this race and get up to P1 finally after a long and hard-fought night, now is the time to do it. This time around, you'll take 5 laps left to go. If we have any less than 4 laps left on the board and a caution flag were to come out, this race would end under caution flag conditions. There is no conserving for a pass on the last lap. It is time to go if you've got what it takes.
You've got to make this move, and you really have to make it now. The 15 of Novak, so good here at a corner number 2. The 6 of Ryan Luza, pretty good here too, but the 15, you saw that run that he got out of corner number 2, sucks right up tight to the 6. I think if there's a move to come, Evan, it's probably going to come out of corner number 2. The 15 dives to the inside. The 6 comes down the lane a little bit, but the 15 is Zach Novak. He saw what happened between Luza and Alfala. We'll see if he can mount any sort of move, and if he does, Keegan Leahy is going to be right there too. 3-way dance for the top spot as they complete 121.
And I don't see that ability for the 50 to Zach Novak to get up to and stay right there on the bumper of Luza like we saw Randy Luza's ability to do that with Ray Alfala. He's there, but I think it's going to come from a big run as opposed to just simply stepping out and using a little bit of the ability to, take that air off of the left rear quarter panel per se, take it up alongside him. He's going to have to drive it into the corner, tried it there. Luza used the mirror to come down and shut the door. This time by 3 laps to go from Michigan, and if the top 2 get into it, do not forget about Keegan Leahy, that 3rd car in line.
What is Zach Novak going to do? Is he going to think about the points and think about maybe trying to get himself into that top 8 late in the run, or does he want a win as they head through corners number 1 and 2? He's going to run a little bit high here. Is going to be that car of Zach Novak. Gets a good run off corner number 2 again. A little bit loose, but he's just not close enough. That entry into 3 really compromises his run down the front straightaway. He's going to have to think about this move, I think, late, and it might be a last lap pass. He would have seen the way that the 6 car treated that 2 of Ray Alfala, who is now falling outside of the top 5, fighting with the likes of Michael Caution. Caution ends it.
Wow, a yellow flag is going to come out approaching 2 laps to go. This race is done, and it is Casey Kerwin, who is scored in 9th position at the time, is a round up on the outside of 3 and 4, and this race is over with. We'll take a second look at the RaceSpot TV replay. Looks like a drag race down the back straightaway gone wrong. It all started halfway down the back. Right there's the contact. It comes from the 14 machine. That angle a little bit tough to tell. It looked like Mullis came down a little bit. Kerwin went up a little bit. I think you'd be hard-pressed to put the blame solely on any one of those drivers, but they get into each other. The 27 bounces off of the outside wall, and it was Kerwin who went for the slide, unable to hang on up into the outside wall, and just like that, this race is over, and Zach Novak will not get that opportunity to try to steal this race from Ryan Luza.
Zach Novak definitely put a fight up, though, a couple of times, drove it hard into the corner. And we talked a little earlier when we had that rash of cautions about those drivers driving it 1, 2, maybe 3 lengths deeper into the corner to try to make something happen. Zach Novak drove it in a couple of times, a little deep to try to make it happen. Couldn't do it on Ryan Lewis. He just ran at a time, and the caution flag came out. They'll see the white silk this time by. Final lap here at Michigan. Man, oh man, Ryan Luza from the front to the back with that pit strategy. Stayed out and then back up to the front, and probably going to come away with a win here as long as he can keep it under fire here for the next lap.
He started this race first, and it looks like he will finish this race in first, Randy, but he probably had to pass more cars in doing so than Marcus Richardson did, starting in 19th position, going up to finish in P4 as one of the bigger movers on the night. It was quite the eventful afternoon for the 6 car.
There's a lot of eventful nights here up and down this entire field. Talking about Marcus Richardson, I mean, Michael Guest, 17th up to 5th. I mean, the one driver who I think probably had the most intense night of all of them is that 77 of Andrew Fash, 3rd. Talked about him. At one point I said, oh, we don't really see him in the top 10. We saw him on the top 10 tonight. Fortunately, things aren't really going his way. The 46 of Logan Clampett, though, he had a quiet night overall, but that 2-tire call and as scary loose as that car was in that final run on those 2 tires, he had a very busy 10 or 15 lap run to get to the checkered there. Maybe not passing a lot of cars on the night, but I think that busy 10 to 15 lap sequence would have made up for it as Ryan's getting ready to bring us home.
Well, it looked like this race was out of hand. Decided to stay out, not come down pit road after the second yellow of the night. Fell outside of the top 20, but he battled hard, made a lot of passes on a lot of race starts, and I think importantly, made a move on pit road to pick up 2 positions late. He executes on a late race restart, and he gets to get a sigh of relief at the end, take a deep breath, and it'll be at a slow to pace, but it'll be just as sweet for Ryan Michael Luza. Checkered flag and the win tonight from Michigan International Speedway. He comes back, he gets the win, and for Luza, that'll mark checkered flag at number 3 on 2018.
Some up and down nights from some of those drivers that were near the front of the standings as Keegan Leahy congratulates the 6 of Ryan Luza. Ray Alfala going to fall to position number 6 at the end of this one. And I don't know if we see a budding rivalry there or whatever the case may be, Evan, but I'm sure Ray, he's been in the shoes before. He's a multi-time champion in this series. He's been around, done many laps on iRacing. I'm sure he's not too happy with Ryan Luza, but we'll see how he handles it here in the next couple of weeks as he comes up and gives him a little door slam down the back straightaway, and they're going to send Luza sideways.
I was going to say, I was watching those 2 cars come together, Andy. Your race leader tends to drop a little bit of speed. Everybody comes up and tends to give a congratulatory bump, and that one was a little bit more physical, courtesy of Ray Alfala. The right side of Ray's car was already torn up, so I don't think he cared too much about that left side.
Yeah, maybe a little drama indeed. It's always good to see these sort of rivalries. I've always said it in sim racing. A lot of the guys, they tend to be squeaky clean. They don't like to be too controversial with one another. You know what? At the end of the day, I like to see clean, hard racing, but I want to see some controversies out there as well. Maybe we have a budding one here. That 6 machine of Ryan Michael Luza. The cars aren't going to be as clean for the donut screenshots anymore, but he's going to come celebrate regardless. He's going to go down and think about what he has to say in the post-race after this one.
Yeah, Fowler just misses out on the top 5, so I don't think we're going to have an opportunity to hear from him. I'm sure Luzo will talk about it. One of the fun things about Michigan, you can actually go down and park it at Victory Lane. That's exactly what he does, and that's where we'll have an opportunity to catch up with him in just a moment. Ryan Luza, though, is your race winner tonight for the Michigan International Speedway. We'll take one more quick opportunity to step aside as he burns it down on the front straightaway, and when we come back, we'll chat with your race winner and your top finishers, and of course we'll get you set for the next time out. Let's take a look top to bottom though at your full race results. Ryan Luza takes on the win in this one. Zach Novak 2nd, Keegan Leahy 3rd, Marcus Richardson 4th, Michael Gaston 5th. Those are the drivers who will be down trackside with in just a moment. Around Fallon missing out on that with a P6. Matt Busa comes home in 7th. Corey Vincent finishes in 8th. Christian Challenger 9th, and Nick Ottinger rounds out your top 10.
Jimmy Mullis going to come home in position number 11. Bobby Zielinski, there's another one that had an up and down night, finishes in 12th. Colton Davis in 13th. Nick Shelton in 14th. And David Rattler in 15th. Brian Schoenberg, Michael Conti, the 2 Team Conti teammates, come home 16th and 17th. Andrew Fash, the 3rd and 18th. Logan Clampett in 19th after that tire strategy at the end. And Alex Bergeron comes back from, what was it, Randy, 5 laps down to finish in the top 20?
Yeah, he was 5 laps down earlier after we saw him come down pit road in tow, and I think he got a chain of lucky dogs basically there, got the wave around and got on the lead lap. He ended up 1 lap down, but great to see Bergeron bounce back like that. Chris Shearburn, 21st though, Ryan Lowe in 22nd, Joe Letterello 23rd, Phil Diaz 24th, Brad Davies 25th, Blake Reynolds in 26th, Adam Gilliland, in 27th, Casey Tucker 28th, Jake Sturgio's 29th, and Chris Overland rounds out your top 30. It was Brandon Pittgrass, Casey Kerwin, Nolan Scott, Taylor Hurst, and Jarl Tien rounding out the 35 cars field tonight.
Look top to bottom at your RaceSpot TV full race results. We step aside. When we come back, we will chat with Ryan Luza. He's your winner tonight for the Michigan International Speedway. You're watching the 2018 NASCAR Peak Antifreeze iRacing Series on RaceSpot TV in iRacing Live, the post-race show, when we come back.
Section PU 402, row 41.
Jimmy Johnson, the fastest gun in the West.
Section 104, row 4.
Blaney out of the first win.
Section 25, row 3.
What a year for Bubba.
Section O, row 25.
Keselowski's gonna win at Talladega.
Section 156, row 4.
Kurt Busch to the lead on the backstretch.
Section 233, row 1.
Martin Truex Jr. wins.
You get a seat, but we doubt you'll ever use it. Grab your seats at NASCAR.com/tickets today.
Oh, that was late.
Hey guys! This week, the 6 on my team are Truex, Logano, Larson, Blaney, Chase, and Suarez. For the rest of you, better luck next week.
She's missing out, dude.
Yeah.
The all-new NASCAR Fantasy Live. Visit NASCAR.com/fantasy and build your team today.
We welcome you back live to the Michigan International Speedway. What a finish to what was a pretty tame race to the opening 60 laps as we welcome you back into RaceSpot TV's post-race show coverage of tonight's Michigan 250. 8 races now complete on the 2018 NASCAR Peak Antifreeze iRacing Series campaign. Evan Pasoko, Tim Terry, Randy Jenneth with you. And Tim, the first 60 laps were absolutely no indication of what we were to see in the closing 60.
No, a completely different race that we've seen from end to end, especially in the middle portion of the race going into that second half where there was a lot of cautions there. But we did see some green flag racing at the end, and we saw a fantastic finish. And nothing like a little bit of paint swapping, a little bit of almost like a short track sort of feel where those guys were moving each other out of the way a little bit at the end of the race.
And we'll find out what was going on behind the wheel as we go trackside and get a word with your top finishers. But of course, down in victory lane tonight, the driver of the number 6 Ford, Ryan Luza, gets his 3rd win of 2018. We're trackside with the Fast Track Sims driver. Ryan, congratulations on the win. I know you started up front and you finished up front, but man, did this race take a turn at about that halfway point. We get a yellow, and everybody comes down in pits. Everybody's at agreeance, and then, well, the next time around, you guys decided to stay out, and I guess in hindsight, not the right call. It really cost you a lot. Tell us about that fall to the back and the eventual march back to the front.
Yeah, that was a really, really bad call. I completely underestimated how much the car falls off in 3 laps. It was only 3 laps. And I went from 1st to 20th in like 3 laps once we went green again. So learned our lesson there for later. Just haven't really been on in a while. But the car was great, especially on the long runs. I think on like a 15-lap run, we were about even, maybe a little bit slower than some people, but 30. And then once we got to like the 40-lap runs, we were really, really moving compared to most people. So the race didn't really play into our favor, but I was able to come back through from about 20th, got a few spots with the caution, then got up to 3rd and got another caution. And then having that first pit stall helped us out a lot. And we came out right behind Clampett with his 2-tire call. And him actually washing up in front of Keegan on the last restart was just about what did it for me. I don't know if I'd ever got past Keegan because we were really, really similar on speed for the first 20 laps of the run.
When we saw, Ray was on that outside position, got blocked out, and he was able to take advantage of being down low. So role reversal, you find yourself in that position, and it was this time around the 24 who got boxed out. You're out in front, but we know that these races never go uncontested. It's never as simple as just simply walking off it into the sunset. And obviously, late in this race with the Ray Alfala entry in the 2-car as well, you guys had a good battle. Tell us about that one.
It was a really good battle. I missed a corner really, really badly whenever he got under me, and I was just too tight to do anything about it. Car was really tight till about lap 4 or 5, and then it started coming to us, and he knew I was really, really good off the corner, so he was kind of checking up in the center and keeping me stuck behind him off the corner. Kept getting the run. I kept kind of pushing him off the corner. Couldn't really get the run. I finally got a decent run. He threw the block, which is fine. So I went ahead and gave him a few taps in the center of the corner, pushed him up, and I think he was trying to pinch me a little bit off the corner, which is, that's fine. He just got unlucky with how the cars reacted, and it sent him into the wall. I thought it was really good racing between us two. I didn't wreck him. I just moved him up the track, and him racing me was fine. He got the bad end of the stick, of course, being on the outside, but I don't think there should be any hard feelings. I had a good time racing with him, and especially Novak was really fast towards the end, just barely able to hold him off.
Obviously, a little bit of contact as well there post-race, a message to you courtesy of the 2 machine. Would that give you any reason to be concerned that this is something that, goes on for the rest of the year between you two, or do you think at some point, or at least between now and the next time out, that things simmer down and really nothing comes of it?
I wouldn't think so. I know Ray pretty well. We've always raced hard, always raced good with each other. I hope not. I mean, he has like 80 points on the cutoff right now, so I know he's safe, and he still got 6th, so it really wasn't a big deal. And I'm still not sure if he actually meant to hit me there. Too bad after the race was over, it could have just been a little bit of a harder contact than he meant. But if it was, I understand it too. We're racing hard, trying to go for the win.
Talk about not, maybe underestimating those tires a little bit. When you guys were out front by those 8 or so seconds after the first hug of the green flag pit stops, one of the things we were talking about is you guys missed a couple of weeks, and you were able to, at least at the start of this race, jump right back into things running, and it didn't show at all that, maybe that time off had weared on you. But obviously a new build came in as of last week, which is why we had an extra week off between Charlotte and this week. So, 3 weeks instead of the usual 2 weeks. And we kind of figured that anytime there's a new build, driver is going to be on the sim a little bit more, figuring things out. Did you feel like maybe your a little bit of less track time in recent weeks did hurt you at all? Or, you guys got the win, so it looked like you were pretty comfortable.
Yeah, I don't think it really hurt us. I came back last week a little bit and worked on the new build once it came out with the guys. I just had a few personal things going on, ended up moving, and couldn't really get my internet situation figured out. It's still a little bit shaky right now. My teammates are telling me I was still lagging a little bit, but hopefully I get that figured out towards the end of the season. But the break was nice. I enjoyed it. Nice little refresher, but missing 2 races didn't help our situation in points, so I really got to stay consistent and not put myself in bad situations here, as we finish out the year.
We're happy to have you back, and it was a great night down track. We'll let you get out of here. I know it was a long evening full of a lot of action, so we'll let you jet. But before we do, as always, Ryan, the sponsors and the shout-outs. Anybody you want to say hi to?
Big thanks to Fast Track Sims for staying on board, even with my absence the last 2 races. Thanks to him for staying on board. Everybody at Phenom Racing Team, we've been really, really strong. We were running 1, 2, 3, I think, there for a bit. Chris had some bad luck, but big thanks to Chris Shearburn. He made great finds on the setup this week. We would not have been anywhere near as fast as we were without him. Thanks to Keegan, as usual, Derek Bordeaux for spotting, and Andrew Fayash is a new addition to the team.
We always appreciate chatting with you, Ryan. Again, welcome back and congratulations on the win. Third one for you guys on the 2018 campaign. We get twisty next time out. We'll catch you at Sonoma.
Thanks, Evan.
Race winner tonight for the Michigan International Speedway, Ryan Luza. Clutch when it matters the most. He gets the win here tonight from MIS. We'll toss things down now. Trackside, Zach Novak comes home with a second-place finish, and Tim Terry's down with the driver of the 15.
Yeah, down here with Zach Novak, and Zach, the caution flag comes out about 2 laps short of the finish. I know you were setting something up. If you had 2 laps left under green to finish this thing, do you think you'd be in victory lane?
I don't really know. The car kind of got loose there off the corner those last 2 laps or so, and still had a really good car. It just wasn't good enough to get the run I needed down the straightaway. And for some reason, it seemed like we were down a little bit on straightaway speed. So even when I was getting good runs, I couldn't really set Ryan up like I wanted to, and tried to throw it into 3 there once. Hope he made a mistake, but I couldn't get it below him in time. So all in all, the car was really, really solid. It sucks that we had a bunch of wrecks there, and all my teammates had worse finishes than they should have. We all should have probably been in the top 10, but I'm really, really happy with second. Definitely shouldn't have finished there if it went green. So overall, really good night for us.
Especially with a lot of these drivers going from the back to the front. Finishing in second has to be a good feeling here at Michigan, but shot in the arm as well, coming up second top 5 of the season, really has to feel good momentum-wise coming into this stretch. That'll take us into the playoffs.
Yeah, it does. We've had some really bad luck this season, and Kansas kind of broke us out of that, and then had bad luck again last week, or last race, I guess, at Charlotte, and finally, I think we're putting together a majority of our races as good finishes instead of just having bad luck every week. So, I mean, the cars have been really good. It's a little easier to finish well if you have good cars. So hopefully we can just click off some top 10s and top 5s and somehow squeak our way into the chase.
Next time we see the series, we'll go to Sonoma. It's turning left, it's turning right. You control more of your destiny. What do we see out of a road course coming up from Zach Novak?
Well, I qualified on pole there last year, surprisingly. Don't really know how I did that, but hopefully we can do that again. Maybe not fall back as much in the race and take a top 5 home from there. That'd be awesome if we can pull off a finish like we did today, and just keep climbing away in the points.
Beautiful looking race car number 15. Who makes it happen to get to the track every single week?
Everybody at Lockdown Racing. I really can't thank them enough for all their hard work. Matt Bontempi, Taylor Hurst, Jimmy Mullis, and David Rattler. Thanks to all of them for all they do, and really a pleasure to be working with them. I have a lot of fun on iRacing and even off of iRacing, and I'm really glad that I'm a part of that group. And thanks to my sponsor, simspeedshop.com. If you need any button boxes or any other sim appliances, go to them. Thanks to Logo Toker Designs for the beautiful looking paint scheme, and just thanks to everybody at iRacing and RaceSpot for putting this on.
And there's Zach Novak. Great to see him back up here in the top 5, finishing in second this evening at Michigan. I believe Randy has caught up with the driver, the number 24, Keegan Leahy.
Yep, I'm stood by with that number 24 car. Keegan, what a run from you. Qualified second, finished third. It was a good, solid run for you. How was the car all day?
The car was great except for the short run. I had a bit of issues there, and I wasn't able to keep the lead on a few of those restarts, and I just didn't have enough laps to mount a challenge at the end. I was catching them, but I just wasn't close enough due to my short run issues during the start of that run.
I think the biggest excitement we saw you get into pretty much all night was at one point you were fighting with the race lead and Jimmy Mullins. He kind of threw a bit of a slow block on you on the front straightaway, and you went spinning off your nose down into the grass and ended up keeping it green, though. What's your mindset on that incident?
Yeah, usually when you go for a block like that, you got to do it quick. That's what most people do. You got to show your intention, and I thought there was going to be a gap, so I was going for it. I had speed on him, and by the time I got to his left rear, he was a little bit closer than I thought I would be by that time. So I'll take some of the blame for it. I definitely could have backed out if I saw that coming a little earlier. And I don't think it's 100% my fault, but I'll definitely apologize for it.
Now, looking towards the next race we have, Sonoma, you guys at Phenom have definitely been pretty much, I think, the class of the field over the course of this entire championship thus far, but going into the road course, it's always a bit of a wild card, bit of a curveball that gets thrown into the mix. What do you guys think you guys have for the twisty place there up in Northern California?
I have no clue. We've been through a couple builds since then, so we'll see. I really love the track. I got pretty good at it the last couple of years. It's taken a lot of practice to get good at these road courses. It's such a different discipline, but you really see the cream rise to the top. You'll see Bobby Zelensky is amazing there. He's a great driver. You'll see Ryan Luza up there in front, and there's people like Matt Busa and Taylor Hurst that are always flying at these road courses. So it's definitely mostly driver, but I think we'll bring a really good setup there too.
Well done, you guys at Phenom, 2 of the top 3. Who gets it done for that 24 car?
Well, I really got to thank Chris Shearburn for the help all week. I wasn't able to put as much effort in as I normally do, and he really stepped up his game this week and brought a killer car on a new build week too. So that takes a lot of R&D and a lot of testing, and he made some really smart adjustments to this car to make it how fast it was. And I'd like to thank Virtual Racing School for being on the hood and the quarter panels and the rear deck lid and everywhere. And actually, speaking of the rear deck lid, I think I got Gonzo Designs on there. That's who painted the car, so I appreciate that too. And I'd like to thank you guys for the broadcast and iRacing for putting this on.
Well, you're more than welcome, bud. And moving on down the line, Mr. Timothy stood by with that one car, Marcus Richardson from Dynamic Autosports and the Chaos Crew.
And Marcus Richardson had to do some work here this evening to come up to position number 4. Marcus, where did you come from? Big moves at the end of the race.
Yeah, we took 2 tires with our junior racing is for lovers Toyota Camry earlier in the race. I felt like the car was pretty good, but I couldn't go anywhere, and the track position paid off for me. Held on to it for the rest of the race.
Saw a rash of caution flags just past the halfway point in this one, and then we saw some green flag racing near the end. Do you think if we would have had those last couple of green flag laps, you might have been able to make a couple more spots, gain a little bit of ground there?
Nah, I think where I finished is pretty about where I was gonna get tonight. The top 3 had just something figured out here on this new build, but we think we know what it was, so we'll come get them in a couple weeks here. We can't really use it 2 weeks at Sonoma, but we'll try it again here in a couple weeks.
Looking at the championship standings right now, before the drop is factored in, looks like you're sitting 11th in the standings. Top 8 make the playoffs. That's the ultimate goal, but you really have to feel the momentum on your side, especially with a top 5 run here.
Yeah, I was it's been a rough season for me. I think I haven't run the greatest, but we've been getting a lot better the last couple of weeks at Dynamic Autosports, and I'm pretty encouraged, especially going into the road course race. We got Christian Challenger, who's pretty great on the road courses, so looking forward to see what he comes up with. Thoughts and prayers are with him, though. He's racing with the heavy heart with his grandfather. He's falling pretty ill. So just, I don't know. I'm excited. I know I don't sound like it because I'm monotone, but I'm pretty excited about my finish.
And we look forward to seeing that number 1 car near the front of the field in a couple of weeks' time at Sonoma. Toyota Owners 400, Richmond Raceway on the hood of this thing. Who else do you have on this race car, and who helps you get to the virtual racetrack every week?
Shout out to everybody at SimSeats, Velocity Micro, and MRN, and Kicker Audio, Heyman Hustle. Shout out to you guys for broadcasting the race, and buy some tickets for September. I believe the race is September 22nd. If you buy them now, they're as low as $35. So come on out for the race.
There you go. There's Marcus Richardson, the Chaos crew, coming home with a top 5 run here this evening with the one car finishing in P4. I believe Randy has caught up with a driver that we're used to seeing up here in the top 5 these last couple of weeks. How about that 54, Michael Guest?
Yeah, he's become let's say, familiar guest up here. Ha, 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 ha. I'm so funny. But, Michael, great run from you in that number 54 machine, up to a top 5 from 17th on the grid. Both you and Marcus Richardson really had your work cut out for you to get yourself up to this top 5. How was it trying to wheel through the field at a place here like Michigan?
Oh, yeah, it was definitely interesting. I started 17th, but I ended up falling back to about, 30th on the first run. And after I got pretty used to the car and everything, we started moving up through the field, and I definitely liked the short run on our cars. So as the race went on, we kept on getting the cautions. I really took advantage of it and eventually found ourselves up near the top 5.
Talking about the way the race went out tonight, we had the long opening green flag run up to about lap 62 or so. Then it seemed like the entire field, basically, mindset just shifted. We went from a long 60-lap green flag run to basically back-to-back cautions. I think the longest run mixed in that was about 10 to 15 laps. Now, when you're in a race like that, can you kind of feel the mindset, the entire field change? Like, is that something you can read from in the car and see everyone's sort of priority change? Or is it just something that you kind of have to just hope doesn't happen or try to react to?
Well, specifically this race, I could definitely tell it's happening because unlike most of the season, track position was really, really important in this race. So on the restarts, everybody was going 3 and 4 wide, just trying to get the most of it.
Now, we've seen you in a lot of the other kind of content be very, very strong. We've seen you in the rallycross stuff. We've seen you on dirt as well. So that's all sort of really different from the typical stuff you do here on the NASCAR side of things. Sonoma coming up in a couple of weeks' time. You think that your work, especially on the rallycross side of things, is going to help you be strong there?
Yeah, hopefully. I haven't done too much practicing in these big cup cars at Sonoma, so we'll see how it goes. It's definitely going to be a challenge.
Congratulations once again, Michael, on getting yourself a strong top 5 finish. Who gets it done for you at Nexus Esports?
Yeah, of course, Nexus and Dead Zone, working with them, PC Solutions, JDR Graphics, LSR TV, and of course you guys at RaceSpot for broadcasting this.
Well, there he is, Mr. Michael Guest, strong top 5 finish from that number 54 car, Evan.
And a big thanks, as always, top 5 finishers for sticking around post-race and chatting with us, Randy. Could have easily been a 4th time Ray Alfala got a race win here from Michigan. Instead, it'll be quite the contrary. It'll be the 8th different race winner we've seen at this racetrack in now 9 years of contest, going all the way back to the 2010 season. And kind of like a plate race. Big wrecks, a lot of excitement, late race restarts, and a lot of fun, and it never hurts to have a little bit of controversy to get the folks talking after a race.
Oh, definitely. I do enjoy it, honestly. I love to see people play nice, but at the same time, it's racing, it's a competition. I love to see the rivalries end up build, and it's always a good thing to see. And I'm really looking forward to the next race we have out at Sonoma. I know that Watkins Glen is generally a track more people are familiar with. It tends to be a little bit easier for people, but I love Sonoma. It's so tricky. It's going to be really fun to see how these guys try to work that place up north. I'm sure we're going to have fireworks.
We talk more and more with each passing week, Tim, on the importance it is to get your name up and into those playoff qualifying positions, into the top 8 to be able to fight for a championship. And we talked about it with Luza when it looked like he really made a big mistake and threw this race away, fell outside of the top 20. You can't afford a mulligan like that. Well, if you don't like road courses, tough luck, because you're going to have to shape up or ship out, because we go to Sonoma, that lone road course, and it falls again at a very particular time in the season that it makes it a lot more than just a challenging race. It is an excruciatingly important race for a lot of drivers' championship hopes, and that one comes up in 2 weeks' time.
But at the end of the day, they all knew that Sonoma was on the schedule in race number 9 when the schedule came out back in January. So for those that have been fretting it, it's going to come. It's coming next week or 2 weeks' time. For those that like the road course, and we mentioned Bobby Zielinski, going to be really quick there. Guys like Ryan Luza, obviously, is quick everywhere we go. We're going to see some different drivers up in front. Michael Conti, remember back to last year where Conti ran so strong and then popped a transmission, I think, just as he took the lead. So there's lots of things that can be done, and there's Michael Conti sitting in 10th 7th in the standings. Christian Chalner down there as well, and he's another one that we have earmarked that could very well be quick at Sonoma. Michigan, you mentioned, saw a lot of super speedway type characteristics. We saw some drivers being moved out of the way for the lead and a little bit of a hip check on some of them too. So you saw a little bit of super speedway, you saw a little bit of short track on a 2-mile racetrack. So it's really great to see. Fantastic race. These drivers put on a show. Lots of green flag running at the first and a couple of cautions mixed in as well. But excited to see what they can do in a couple of weeks' time at Sonoma. A little bit of a different pace, and we'll see who can really put the rubber to the road and end up front.
And it continues to be, from what I would say, a great season that we've been seeing top to bottom so far. A lot of great racing, and tonight was no exception. It was a fun evening, and we look forward to the next time out. But with all of that being said, round number 8 does fall into our rearview mirror. And that does it for us here from the Motor City. I want to thank all of the people who make these Tuesday night broadcasts possible. The behind-the-scenes side of things, camera angles provided by East Van Ballo, Broadcast CG, Simon Grossman, Kevin Papey, everybody on their team, Andy Werner on the graphics, of course, for Will Vincent, Hugo Luis, Drew Adamson, Cisco Scaramuza, everybody else behind the scenes at RaceSpot TV and iRacing, and of course, for your broadcast team tonight. For myself, Evan Pasoko, for Tim Terry and Randy Cheneth, we want to say congratulations to Ryan Luza, 3-time winner on 2018, as he makes quite a splash in his return to the track here tonight. As always, next Tuesday is off, but we will be back on Tuesday, June the 26th from Sonoma Raceway as we get a little bit twisty in wine country. That race and every race of the 2018 NASCAR Peak Antifreeze iRacing series on RaceSpot TV can be found right here on iRacing Live. Until next time, though, good night from Michigan. We'll catch you for round number 9.